the more I think about it, the more we should just go back to the Cobb Energy Center. The fans loved it.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, let's ask Bart.
Keys, where are my keys?
Hey, Bart, what do you think about going back to Highest Expo at the Cobb Energy Center?
I like it.
Bart made his way back to the Cobb Energy Center for his keys, and the rest of us will be going for Worlds early on in January of 2021. So we hope to see you there. It's going to be a beautiful event, so make sure to jump in, get your information, and start thinking about your tickets now. My name's Dolson. Gormizer is with me for our fourth and final set of the day. And this one's an important one, Gore. It's Hype Unit versus the Trick Babushkas, two teams that have already lost games earlier today. And very important, and maybe having both of them potentially qualify, potentially not qualify into this group.
Yeah, winner of this one is probably the most important one you've seen this day. Just everything that's come before. I mean, Houdini's, first off, two incredibly big wins for them. So they started off, I think, in a much better position than a lot of people would have expected coming into this week. Trick Babushka and Hype Unit, as of right now, not exactly in the best spot. Whoever gets this win will finally find themselves at least 1-1 for what we've watched.
Correct.
Whoever gets this loss will find themselves 0-2 for what we've watched. And things like that matter a lot. When the group stage, the round robin comes through, 2 losses, it could be a death sentence for the Challenger circuit.
Yeah, it's tough to come back from. I mean, Hype Unit, technically in our last set, by name recognition, were the favorites, but Houdini's playing some brilliant Smite today. They take 2-3 game sets. They go the distance. They're long, brutal games, but Houdini's is able to get it done. So now you're wondering the mentality of Hype Unit.
And, I mean, that's going to be another thing to look at. It's not just mentality. It's how long these games are going for them. I mean, that's a long 3-game set. And for Houdini's, that's their second long set they had. But for Hype Unit, things like that will factor into it, to your mentality, into your stamina for how long you can play. We've mentioned it before, but a lot of the open bracket weeks were pretty long for these guys. But when it comes to group stage, it's just as long because of how round robin it can be. And then potential for tiebreakers towards the end as well. Like, there's a lot that can shake it out.
Well, this one's so important, Gormizer, and it's going to be great. So let's jump into picks and bans to get things rolling here. The warning signs of the Camazotz, I think, are written on the wall at this point. Hype Unit were on the receiving end of it in the last game.
Yeah, actually, right back there, it says ban Camazotz. You can't see it.
I see it, right. It's on the other side of the poster. If we were to spin it around, it would say ban Camazotz. They haven't done so just yet. Hercules, though, has found himself in the ban column a good bit here today.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that's specifically a against Hype Unit ban, right?
Sure.
Like, that's not a, hey, everyone go out and ban him. Although, granted, with how potent he can be as a support, it is not a bad ban, but that's a, like, Leon special, right? Where it's just like, that's going to give so much potency to this entire team. Get it out of there. It's an Uzzy special. Can provide a lot to the team from there as well. Get it out of there. It's just flexible. Granted, we've seen a lot of it in support. It's a beads burner. It is so good at CCing people. Like Hercules, it's one of those things where he's just frustrating to play against because once your beads are gone, you're just against the wall for 50% of the time.
Well, they take the advice on the back of our poster back there and end up banning out the Camazotz. But the way those bans go, you know, it's been Kukulkan in that conversation so often. He's kind of been that 6th, 7th god, and maybe even first ban here and there. But Merlin has so often been his lane opponent.
And it's worth noting, it was when oBoronic was playing Kukulkan earlier that's the one they won for Hype Unit. So that's already a good note for them. But Trick Babushka, granted, they had to kind of feel it. Crimson gave it to them. The Merlin has been really good in this day, and I think it'll be good for them here. Along with the Najah, it could be interesting overall, but Najah, again, typically right now in a support role more than we see out of the actual jungle, which leaves open the question mark of what will be assisting that Merlin maybe more often than not.
Hey, you know what was very good in our previous set was Layers on set was so good in the game that Hype Unit were able to take off of the Houdinis, and they're going to pivot back towards the set this time around. It wasn't the jungle the last time for them. We have for Hype Unit rather. We have seen some flexibility out of the set, but I imagine they're just going to look to replicate it with Layers.
I just because of that ban just realized Yamoja was available.
Yeah, wait a
second.
second.
Nobody did anything with her, and I'm very upset about this now. Naja got picked over Yamoja. I mean,
Yeah, but
granted, it
is that a
depends on the
Leon
stylization.
ban or pick?
No, I feel like the
Like pick
Naja,
away from
yeah,
Leon?
is like a I'm gonna scoop this so that
Right.
you don't get it, but man,
Yeah, wait a
Yamoja
second.
is so good though.
I think it's one of those things where every time we've talked about bans, we're like, all right, the first 6 are standard, let's move on.
we can just
and I
glance away.
I haven't said the name Yamoja in so long because she's so often banned. She is again, but she makes it through the first 6 picks of this game and then goes into the second ban phase. So interesting prioritization here. You hope that the Naja will have the impact that it deserves, or maybe it carries now. Is Kukulkan and Erlang Shen, though, to round out the hype unit roster.
And I like this. Again, you get a lot of flexibility from the team. I don't know which one of those is going where, but it's going to be fun to see. I think we've seen both of them play support, although Erlang Shen comes to my mind as something more often. Good taunt, good pin, a lot of setup for a Xbalanque or for a Kukulkan to be able to keep things rolling for them. Whereas the Athena, the Osiris on the other side, I like it. I love Athena personally. She's one of my favorite gods in the game, period. So I like what she brings. And again, if I mention Erlang Shen for his taunt on his ult, it should be mentioned that Athena gets that not on an ult. She just gets to cast it regularly, and it is really good.
Well, Athena's got that global presence. She's got the gap close, some team fight potential. And with the way hype unit plays, aggressive play style, that Athena might be able to turn around some ganks.
Yeah, I'm wondering what they're going to be bringing to it. Again, a lot of my question marks are really going to be beside Naja now, because it feels like that.
Yeah.
Did we take it because we don't want you to have it? Did we take it because it's going to be good for us? Otherwise, hype unit are stacked.
Well, this is a big one. Gormizer, hype unit, Trick Babushka, both looking for their first win today, so we'll go down to our star duo, Finch and Aggro.
Thanks, Dawson. Thanks, Gormizer. Let's head on down to game number 1, and this is indeed a big one. Our final game of the group stage is here today in North America, and this very well could determine who moves on beyond this group stage and who has to keep watching from home. And into this game, Layerssss back on this set that we saw him play earlier in the jungle. An early game jungle, I've been assured earlier today. Ready to come online right away here for this guy. He had a monster performance on this. You see that run back in the cards as speed buff potentially being invaded, and Hog is enough to secure.
Yeah, I think that this is a pick for Layerssss that certainly has potential to snowball. We saw it for him last set, but there's a lot of tools that Trick Babushka have to peel effectively. Naja Sash, Naja Ult, Athena Taunt. You can tether him with Osiris, and all of a sudden he's doing a lot less damage to your carries. Upgraded Shell is going to go a long way up against this set. I think that Trick Babushka have enough to potentially take care of this set. Plus, Layerssss up against Xbalanque last time he played this, and it was a really, really good pick because it's impossible for Xbal to ever get away from you. Hachiman has the horse. That's a little bit more long duration movement speed. He's got CC immunity the whole time. You can get away sometimes as long as he isn't too close to you right off the bat.
So maybe some options for Trick Babushka to have a better performance up against this set that we have seen for other teams. Leon, I believe, has the 72 transformations as first ability. Yeah, that's what he leveled up first. I feel like we don't often see this one as that first level, but he gave him some contestation opportunities earlier, some chances to be aggressive, so he's rocking that movement ability first.
And I think that's the right call if you're trying to invade. It gives you the CC and secure. That's what makes Hercules so good at invading, is that he's got great base damage, but he also prevents you from securing while he's doing the securing. So the knockup for 72 transformations can often end up doing the exact same thing. I like Leon on these aggressive the support side.
Sure.
Kind of have a Freudian slip there saying jungler because that's what he was for such a large portion of his career. I think that he can control the pace of the game on picks like this. I like him on things like the Erlang Shen and the Naja. I don't need to see the Geb or the Sylvanas. You know, that's not. I'm sure that's in the God pool, but I don't think that's exactly what hype unit plays best around.
Yeah, maybe not him at his best, right? It just feels like he kind of is at his best. He's able to be aggressive and that shot-calling voice kind of all at once for his team. Across the way, though, to talk about other interesting picks, the Sash does end up landing on the Layerssss. Yuji takes the Athena into the jungle. This is not so uncommon. We see Athena jungle as Mineral gets caught out here a bit in the jungle. Aggression from Layerssss. This forces Mineral to use the sprint. He does make it back towards safety. And so in comes Trick Babushka to contest over these oracles instead. But we certainly see this Athena jungle, but I don't know if I necessarily think of it right away. When I think of Yuji, he reminds me much more of an aggressive type player, as Uzzy narrowly avoids the danger in solo.
Very, very close to getting solo killed. And Yuji right on top of the blue buff, right on time. Layerssss spent a little bit too much time on oracles, chasing out Mineral. that's an easy secure and invade for Yuji with Uzzy getting poked out. And I agree, when I think of Yuji, I think of things like Mercury, these kind of big play assassins, but Athena can be a great pick for your jungler, and I think it's great up against the set. It's great up against the Erlang Shen, these dive potential sort of picks. I'm just a little bit worried if there's enough damage on the follow-up. Is there enough damage to follow up off of such a setup-heavy composition? This is the one comp where a god like Scylla looks a lot better.
Right.
A god like Raijin that can follow up effectively. Kukulkan would look great.
Well, there's aggression though in the middle lane, and that's Layers looking for first blood yet again, covering the option with the ultimate, and Mineral still makes it back out of there. That's a huge play to avoid not dropping there in that gank. Athena tried to get aggressive in mid, but could not lock down the support Naja.
I love the way Mineral's played all day so far today. He's been very impressive. Even the set that Babushka lost, I think Mineral looked really, really strong during that time.
Agreed.
So I'm looking forward to seeing how he's going to do on this Naja. I think that he's an impact player. He certainly learned a lot from his time at the SPL, where he certainly struggled there.
It was a tough situation though.
It was. That wasn't a world-beating team that he joined into, and a team that still had to find its identity.
Yeah.
He, I think, as a player at that level, needed to find his identity still, and
Agreed.
has taken some time to do that. And that's usually what you see. It's the players who get called up, maybe they aren't quite ready or they struggle a little bit, then they come back down and you realize how much you learned in such a short amount of time. That's what I'd expect from Mineral. So for this year, basically, is him being an impact player.
Layers aggressive again, this time ganking in solo. Will commit to the dive for Dragon underneath the tier 1 and can't catch him. In fact, Defender of Olympus means that Yuji's here, so that might mean more aggression. Uzzy taunted back in by that Confound, and they still haven't found first blood. Finally, it comes in favor of the jungler, and Trick Babushka say hello.
Now, a little bit late on that Athena ult, but maybe that was all by design, that they wanted to pull Layers even further underneath the tower. Layers just not quite enough damage output. Uzzy can't contribute from that distance away. Brandon had no ultimate, so it's a good idea to try and get on that side of the map, but he's still Osiris. He still has 16% mitigation by living with his passive stacked, and then that's before the Judgment Tethered mitigations. It's just tough. It's tough to gank this character, man. He just does too much when it comes to survivability.
You do see that even when the Athena's late, the opportunities that it affords you, suddenly the number advantage in your favor, and Trick Babushka able to find a very nice response back. You know, to be honest, I'm a bit surprised they really only got Uzzy there, but
yeah.
Layers recognized to dip almost immediately once that gank didn't work into the tier 1, and they could only end up punishing the Kukulkan. But tell that to Leon, continually stepping up, considering getting aggressive, has to respect that ring bounce though, and ends up giving up the aggression.
I like his choice of boots here. I like Minerals. That's the Talaria boot. Get that extra movement speed. A little bit of extra MP5 didn't hurt Naja either. But these reinforced greaves for ELLEON, great with that CCR.
One target's been taken up to the sky. That's Leon in the grass of Mineral. Comes right back down. Ends up setting up for Boronic's ultimate, but he doesn't find much. They punish Mineral on the back end. Layers is there to gobble him up in the middle lane, and Trick Babushka bite off a bit too much.
And that's exactly the lack of follow-up that I was worried about this composition. Merlin does a lot of things really, really well. Insta-killing people off Naja ult isn't really one of them. He wants you sitting still for a longer period of time.
It's better set up for Boronic, right?
It is. It's much better set up for Boronic, even though he didn't land at that time. You like his odds.
This could be trouble now for Brandon. He survived the last gank, but this time 3 members here to lock him down. Defender of Olympus comes in, so maybe turnaround potential too. Man, taunt comes out from Yuji, and that should be enough for Brandon to make it back to safety. And the turnaround kill. Layers ends up falling. What a play here in solo. They might need to leave this one alone. Suddenly, now they've got help from ShadowChair, who starts throwing in the damage. Can't quite follow up there, but another 2-man taunt brings Boronic back in. The dash there too, and it's just not enough damage. They'll settle for the 1 kill.
Man, so many close calls. If ShadowChair just holds his abilities a little bit longer and waits for a huge taunt coming from Yuji, then that's probably another 2 kills, or at least Boronic has to beads and you kill ELLEON guaranteed. But still a good rotation. That time Yuji is not late on the Athena ult. I thought he might be, but it was just Vision's ultimate obscuring our vision in that moment, and making sure that they didn't know that Yuji was coming down. Layers obviously did have that information, but still couldn't get out in time. And I love Yuji's itemization choice. This is what you want on Athena jungle. Quick power spikes that are very efficient for your gold income, and Stone of Binding is exactly that. Slow them with your 1, you get a passive proc. Taunt them with your 2, you get a passive proc. And it's not only just for you, it's for everybody around you. So even though that I don't think Trick Babushka has the greatest follow-up off of CC, extra pen is going to make up for a lot of that difference.
It really is. You know, I kind of thought for a second they might be considering a Void Stone. You know, that's been a lot of conversation lately, and how it can interact with some Mage pen bin builds. But I think you're exactly right. This feels like a much better path here for the Athena, and very common that we see on these Guardians who go a bit more bruisery. You know, Aurora likes to play this a lot on some of his aggressive Guardians he plays up in the SPL. So I think Yuji's got absolutely the right idea. Come down and talk about these mage builds for a bit. It's the Doom Orb for ShadowChair. And I guess, Aggro, when you're making this choice in the mid lane, when do you elect to go that Doom Orb start as opposed to maybe like the Chronos Pendant Rush or some of those other starts?
Most of the time it's purely god dependent, and I think that Merlin is one of the few that you can really go either one on. Chronos Pendant on Merlin feels phenomenal.
It does.
But it's really hard to pass up 150 plus power on Doom Orb. It's just really, really difficult to not go for that option. So I've got no problem with a Doom Orb on ShadowChair. Maybe you need to find that Chronos Pendant really late in your build. I really don't like it when we see players go Boots, Doom Orb, Chronos Pendant right there, or something like a Divine Ruin into Chronos Pendant. I don't like that very much, but as long as he keeps his pen train going and then gets Chronos Pendant 5th or 6th, I like that build a lot more. As for the Book of Thoth on Kukulkan, that's standard. You're going to be getting that every single game. It just interacts too well with his passive. It ends up giving him so much extra power because Book of Thoth passive converts mana to power. Kukulkan passive converts mana to power, and you get both of those at the exact same time. If you're going anything but Book on Kukulkan, you're doing it wrong.
Well, I know Mifflin would be happy as we take an eye over towards these Hunter builds. It's the Bloodforge there for Hachiman as opposed to the Devourer's Gauntlet. And I think I agree with Mifflin in most cases there. I mean, Hachiman benefits so much from all that additional power, right? Off of the 2, off of his 4th ability as well, able to do so much extra work with that in some of those team fights. I mean, sometimes they can get turned around if we're able to get up on that mounted archery and find multiple members with that shot, get the slow and all that extra damage out there, and Bloodforge can help set up for some of that.
It's just tough to compete when you have to stack and the other person doesn't. And Vision doesn't have to stack that much when it comes to Transcendence, and you still get that 10% CDR until the next patch hits. So you've got some time to really leverage that win for yourself if the enemy goes Devourer's Gauntlets. DayToRemeber had the golden hand. Why waste my time? Why not just go for that Bloodforge? Now, speaking of upcoming patches, Devourer's Gauntlet's getting a buff to that sustain. You're going to end up getting a lot more lifesteal from Devo Gloves than from Bloodforge.
It's
so
more
it might
now, but
more.
not by a ton, you know.
Yeah, it's 15 versus 23%, I believe. 15% for Bloodforge, 23 for Devos. Devos are going up to near 30% after the patch, but that's a couple days, you know, a week or two away. So just keep it in the back of your mind that could be coming up fairly soon. And I think at that point, there's more of a conversation to be had about, do I need the power right now? Do I need the sustain later on?
Yeah.
I think that there's a bigger conversation to be had.
Well, I like this heads-up play from Trick Babushka taking down this Pyromancer, and looks like Hype Unit either weren't aware or just didn't feel like coming over to try and contest that one as they end up getting caught off guard. To kind of keep tabs on this Yuji build, though, I know you already kind of went in depth on the Stone of Binding, but it's Breastplate of Valor in the 3rd slot, which feels like a great pickup here. Adds a ton of tankiness against all the relevant damage he's going to be facing, but I think that 20% CDR has got to be the headline. More taunts and more Defender of Olympus. Yeah,
that definitely helps you. I am a little bit worried, again, that Trick Babushka don't have that much damage in the composition to follow up off these Athena taunts, so Yuji needs to be doing a decent amount by himself. I think as long as he follows this up with something like a Void Stone, I'm pretty happy with where we are, 4 items deep. If we see him go something like a Spirit Robe or, I don't know, some sort of other defense item, Genji's Guard, I'm liking it a little bit less, but I think Breastplate is okay. It's a matter of, do I want to push my lead by getting so tanky that they can't handle me anyways, or do I want to just one-shot people with my lead, which is really a viable strategy as Athena jungle. Yuji decides to just be the facilitator more than the actual carry.
They have gone with this double warrior composition, so you know they're not fighting into the Guardian maybe as much as you might expect, and I imagine Layer's going to be looking for damage. Maybe they feel like they can get away with the amount of damage that they have right now in this composition. It's by the time you realize that you don't, that the answer is no and you needed more, it's oftentimes too late, right? And you need to get out in front of it.
Agreed. It's just really hard to build a lot of damage really quickly. If you need more tankiness, you can transition to that a little bit more easily. I think tank items are usually cheaper because they're for supports who get less gold. Damage items are for carries who get a lot more gold. So it's pretty simple math. One of those is going to be a little bit easier to get quickly than the other.
Mineral is lurking on this left-hand side. I wonder if Visions recognize this. He's going to get caught off guard. Sash baits out the bead, has Defender of Olympus as well, tracks him on the backside of that dash, and they've got him locked down for an easy gank on the left-hand side. DayToRemeber gets the kill credit too, and Visions was unaware.
A little bit of a lack of vision on the left-hand side. As soon as you land that Sash, that kill is happening. There's not a whole lot that Visions could have done differently to survive in that instance. Xbalanque is going to see a resurgence in play with the buff. Don't forget that he is very, very easy to kill if you do it right.
Brandon's going to stay on top of the Kukulkan, so he can't come here to contest, but they drop the objective. Leon pokes his head in to see what's going on until they just lock him down inside the Merlin damage. Oboronic falls as well. A bit of a nightmare situation now for Hypeunit. They're going to get the response kill onto Brandon. I say that, but maybe not. He gets the shell. He's still ticking and ready to keep rocking. Uzzy finally shuts him down, but now ShadowChair rocks in. Sash there lands as well, and this could be a full-on wipe as Babushka bait the Fury perfectly, grab that objective and the kills.
Mineral does land the ring bounce, but with Visions on the respawn, they decide to let it go. Brandon has been, he did not perform his best, I don't think, up against Gamma in their first set that we saw them today. And I was a little bit worried about how he'd do up against Uzzy. To 1v3 and kill Oboronic and then live that long, you're feeling pretty good about your chances if you're Babushka. That's a big play, and it gives you a huge lead. And that's the problem with these Gold Fury contests. How bad is this lead really if Babushka kill Visions and then go and get a Gold Fury? It's bad, but it's not that bad. But what if we lose 3 people and still give them the Gold Fury?
Yeah.
Then that becomes oh, we are now outright losing this game, and that's the situation Hypeunit finds themselves in right there. I understand why they think they can contest that. They've got a Kukulkan, they've got an Erlang Shen. Those are Erlang is a slippery god that's hard to lock down sometimes. Great CC. Oboronic can walk in, but between Layers and Uzzy, they just couldn't do enough damage to keep Oboronic healthy enough to get Brandon off of him so that he could walk in and try and contest gold.
And it's something that Myth's been talking a lot about lately too, which is that you kind of have this advantage when you're the ones that are already in position, right? Your team's already grouped up and they have to come to you. Yeah. And they're a bit more spread out on those rotations. That kind of what happened. Leon got isolated by himself. I do think that we saw, to your point, that they do not burn him quickly. Like when he dropped back down from that ultimate, it still took a while to finally get that kill. But because of the sort of staggered nature of the rotation, it took a while to get the kill as Mineral gets clipped by that ultimate on the tail end. He is on full retreat path. That leaves Yuji by himself up front, but a well-charged dash allows for the Athena to make it back out, and Babushka are A-OK.
Oboronic just no pen in the build, so couldn't do enough damage to Mineral. Great double taunt from Yuji, brings both frontliners in.
And they end up responding with a nice ultimate to knock them up. Mineral takes one up to the sky, but Layerssss in the Kingslayer, forcing ShadowChair out. That means there's not going to be any follow-up, and Mineral comes right back down to a bad part of town. But a great two-man taunt from Yuji, who's played this Athena so well, disrupts all of that aggression from Hypeunit on the back end, and Babushka make it back out.
A clean shell from ELLEON was huge in that engagement, but overall, still does not nearly enough damage, frankly, from either side. Brandon can stand in front of Oboronic as long as he likes in these team fights because Oboronic goes for the Polynomicon very, very early on without a whole lot of pen to back it up. Meanwhile, ShadowChair under siege by Layers, but there's that great peel we were talking about, the Naja ult on Uzzy as soon as he transforms. Then Layers goes in with the Kingslayer. There's Yuji with the Defender of Olympus, giving you that damage mitigation, and you know an extra body is coming to help you out really, really quickly. And Yuji already has the upgraded shell. He is going more defensive, but yeah. I think that at this point, Babushka have such a lead that it makes sense to me, because you can leverage your base damage on Athena. You know ShadowChair is getting enough farm. You know that DayToRemeber is really controlling this left side of the map as he forced Visions out and got the tier 1 tower. That Yuji can say, okay, I don't need to do that much damage. Let me get a hide of the Urchin. This is going to give me all the tankiness I'm going to need for a while. Still a Void Stone at some point we're hoping for, but it can wait until after the Urchin.
But doesn't where ShadowChair is in his build kind of speak to the little bit of struggle I think can be there for mid-mages? I don't want to get on the soapbox too much here.
Oh, no, please,
I
insist. Here, we've got the little box right over here. You're going to slide it over for you?
But it does feel like there are just so many things that you want in the mid lane in your build, right? And there just isn't enough time to build all of them.
I know.
He ends up going to the Divine Ruin here, and it looks like now he wants to push that Chronos pendant in that you would have liked to start off with, but he had to get the Doom Orb. for that big power bank, it can be tough sometimes to pick the exact right spots to build.
I agree. Our role is the hardest, and we are the victims. It can be a Charon's coin for ShadowChair.
Oh, you're right, yeah.
It can be a 20% pen option there, so I expect the Charon's coin, but ShadowChair, or a lot of mid-mages, really love to get that Chronos pendant at the cost of pen sometimes, so maybe they decide to go with that route regardless. But I do agree, this is where you really feel the lack of Obsidian Shard, where before you get all this power and then go, okay, now I do true damage again whenever I want to, or pretty close to it. You don't have that anymore. It takes a lot longer to ramp.
Aggression onto Visions. Doesn't find a whole lot, though, so he makes it right back out of there. And Aggro, I think it is worth kind of noting at this point that the level of play just hasn't quite been there. Mineral gets aggressive and does get pushed back out, so we might not have a chance to talk about it right now, but looks like the fight might end up dissuading. That's because this Fury is about to spawn, and Babushka would much rather be there than having some random skirmish in the jungle. They've got the Fury pulled already. This is Primal burned down to half, and Leon, the only one in range. The lights do get turned out. Visions drops down the Xbalanque ultimate. That forces the reset. That's a big win for Hype Unit.
Uzzy gonna TP in, but Brandon also uses his TP. He's just a little bit further away in that mid tower.
Yuji ults away, now he's right in the thick of things. Mineral has found himself yet another victim, it's Visions. But this time the Tornado's waiting for Mineral instead. Ultimate doesn't find much from Oboronic, though ends up splitting the uprights. So Babushka want to re-engage, but Layers has already taken DayToRemeber out, so ShadowChair gets aggressive and makes him pay. Oboronic ends up falling too. It's a 2-for-1 now in favor of Babushka, and they want to keep going, but Layers still alive in the back, and he's got his sights set on the Mineral, who responds with the sash and manages to weave his way out of there. 3-man taunt from Yuji turns the fight on its head.
And ShadowChair still dancing around the island. No way anyone can catch him now. Uzzy gonna be the only one left standing. He at least catches Mineral, and ShadowChair still in a bad spot, but what do you know? Another good taunt from Yuji cleans up this peel at the very least, though. I don't know if they've got enough damage to bring down Uzzy. Really, really good just fight from Layers in general.
Yeah.
He takes on ShadowChair, he takes on DayToRemeber, and wins against a very, very well-farmed Hachiman.
Yep.
Level 18 in that fight. But ShadowChair does the right thing, and you just gotta leave that guy. When both of your backliners are this fed, you can just let one go and let the other one hard carry the fight. And ShadowChair has a really good fight, really good peel by Yuji again, and Brandon didn't take a lick of damage that whole time. Mineral does his job. He finds a good initiation with an ultimate on Visions, and you were talking about that extra power from that Blood Forge. 3-man mounted archery right off the start made sure that Hype Unit didn't start off that fight particularly healthy.
Not a bad way to start the fight, but Primal Fury being looked at one more time, so it looks like Babushka not ready to give up on it. I don't think that Hype Unit are quite in range. Primal Fury secured by the Chaos Squad. Brandon wants to get aggressive. That's the Lord of the Afterlife. Doesn't end up finding much, but gets the defensive ultimate out from Oboronic and Visions, who now have to fall back.
Surprised that Oboronic goes for a Divine Ruin. I mean, there's some healing you have to worry about. Naja heal. DayToRemeber's got Blood Forge. Glad Shield there for Brandon, but I feel like he needed a 20% pen option right there. He's got no percent pen.
Uzzy aggressive Leon does find himself a nice taunt with that 9-turn blessing. But what was the follow-up on the back of that? Oboronic didn't have an ult, and DayToRemeber in the left lane finds the solo kill in the Visions, who's heavily underleveled, not going to win that matchup. Back to the mid lane fight, though. They know the Hunters are only going to be running in for one team. Oboronic finds a huge shot on the ShadowChair with the Zephyr to shut him down, and Layers has all the clones. Sends Yuji running on the left-hand side. Hype Unit started that fight off on rocky terms, but really end up winning it in mid.
Not too bad. That looked like a fight that, you're right, Hype Unit was going to be behind, but they turned it around, and really it's Layers again. Layers continues to impress.
He really does.
The way that he's played, but Uzzy has another good fight. He's really understood his role very well so far in this game. His Kukulkan play has been very solid. It wasn't just Layers that killed DayToRemeber at that Gold Fury fight. Uzzy was right there with him.
I think Babushka going to make it here in time to contest this Pyromancer. They absolutely are. Yuji blinks to the backside and finds the 2-man taunt. That means the ultimate from Oboronic hits Casper, and the rest of Babushka can keep running right down the middle lane. They want to try and see him get to the back line. Brandon uses the Lord of the Afterlife, and Oboronic now needs some peel, but who can provide it? He gets the stun. Yuji with another taunt forces all the relics out from Oboronic. This is 2 players putting on the pressure, and they absolutely get the kill. Oboronic gets gobbled up.
And Layers gonna try and rotate in and help out. Good route from Uzzy. That'll set Layers up to at least get a return kill, but DayToRemeber and the rest of Trick Babushka, they got that Pyromancer that Hype Unit clearly wanted.
What a nasty way to start that fight, and they're still not done. Layer's been caught by Mineral, gets brought back down, but again, there's not going to be a ton of follow-up on the back of the Windfire wheels. Uzzy steps forward to keep this fight going, but not a whole lot going to come from it. Trick Babushka have 4 members on this right-hand side, though, and really only 2 or 3 in position from Hype Unit if they want to force down the Tier 1.
Brandon's going to find Visions in a bad spot, though, and ultimate coming back up from Brandon. Certainly has potential to get aggressive.
But Layers gets to the back line just like you might want. Uzzy ends up falling early on, and Visions is too low HP to step any further into this engagement. So this should now be the Tier 1 tower for Trick Babushka. I don't think Hype Unit keeps fighting in, even though Leon wants to try and establish some kind of front line. But man, this Trick Babushka team has something special going on, doesn't it? What an engage from Uzzy around that Pyromancer to completely okie-doke Hype Unit.
That was sick. To reset the Pyromancer so that ultimate goes nowhere for oBoronic, the blink behind, no one expects that. That was impressive play from him, and he's really looked very solid so far on this Athena jungle. Not a whole lot of damage, he's bottom of his team, but that's still better than what Visions or ELLEON are providing for Hype Unit, and it's been relevant. 8,000 damage. It hasn't been a lot of poke.
It has been hard fought every bit of it, though, because as you noted, he really has not gone into much more power.
No.
This was kind of your concern. It was High to the Urchin and into Relic Dagger. That's virtually no more power on top of it there for Uzzy. So I'm really hoping that we'll see something in this 6th slot that allows him to get a little bit more damage out of this Athena jungle, because right now a lot of the heavy lifting falls to ShadowChair.
I agree, but I've given up hope. I'll be honest with you. I've given up. I'm not asking for a Void Stone anymore. I just hope that Yuji's happy at this point with his build.
Living his best life.
Because clearly it's not going to be what we want.
No, I don't think that that's what's going to happen here, but he's had a great game, 3-1 and 5, and been a tremendous impact player. It's hard to find a problem with him when he's having a performance like this.
Agreed.
Hype Unit now down about 6,000 gold or so, and at the 24-minute mark, how comfortable do you feel in these Fire Giant fights with your Hype Unit? Really, the only thing that has worked for them so far, I feel like, has been Layers.
I agree. Layers and Uzzy have both done a good job at diving DayToRemeber or ShadowChair, but never both at the same time. And maybe Uzzy's getting to the point where he's going to be tanky enough, but I don't like it.
Leon was grabbed by Mineral yet again. Uzzy there to keep the CC chain going with the taunt. But they still don't have quite enough damage to burn these tanky targets on the back of that ultimate. DayToRemeber, though, finds Visions again, and he's got to stop taking these battles. He hasn't won a single one yet. 0-4-0. It's not been his day.
No, it has not been. I mean, he's been close at the very least. I mean, it's worth noting that Visions is the coach and sub, so certainly not the normal ADC. ADC is not his natural role anyways. He's normally a support, so I think that he definitely deserves some slack for a tough day, but at the end of the day, you got to call a spade. That has certainly hurt them so far on their qualification path.
The same conundrum, right, that Hype Unit are in. Who do we pick between ShadowChair and DayToRemeber? That's not there for Trick Babushka, right?
Oh, no.
It is just oBoronic that they need to take care of in that backline. So obviously there is some detriment there to Hype Unit as the Primal Fury ends up falling. And I do think that it is very hard to lay the blame at Visions' feet. It's Griffin's job to be here, and he couldn't be, right? Those are his actions, and now Hype Unit are the ones that are fighting through that. So I don't put it at Visions' feet, but it is just the truth that he's not been able to do enough for them.
Exactly. Could not agree more. Ultimately, it's up to Hype Unit in a do-or-die game. This is the game to determine who goes to the Smite Challenger circuit.
Exactly.
And who has to compete in that open circuit.
Fire Giant now being started up by Trick Babushka, and they have it down quite low, but this is a bait. They're not committing. They want to see if they can burn Leon very, very quickly, but he survived through the brunt of all. This is in the back line. They've been able to find DayToRemeber. That was Uzzy that dived him. Now he's going to switch targets right out of ShadowChair, and the carries are not getting enough backup in the back line. Leon survived the pressure, and Visions shuts down Uzzy. This was the fight that Hype Unit needed, despite all the negativity.
Wow.
These boys ain't giving up. Layers finds one more, a 3-for-0 in favor of the Order team.
Uzzy just beast moded in that fight.
Did.
Just went to the back line, handled both ShadowChair and DayToRemeber. But this is not free for Hype Unit. Brandon's here, and this is a little bit spooky. oBoronic, no ultimate and no secure. That is exactly what cannot happen whenever you start a fight off. For the first time all game, a fight goes well for Hype Unit, and they get a little bit lost. You don't need both ELLEON and Uzzy hitting that Fire Giant.
Right.
ELLEON's not even hitting it. He's there to tank it. That's fine. Uzzy does so little damage to that objective, it's not even worth having him there. It's his job to make sure he can't zone Brandon that well. He doesn't have any CC. But it's the hey, he's here.
Right.
Hype Unit had, I don't know if they had any idea. Maybe they did have a ward.
It's up there now, isn't it?
It is up there now. I don't know if they placed it afterwards, but all I know is that Oboronic Zephyr was late.
And Spirit Flail very rarely is stealing objectives, right? But that is crazy from Brandon. What a play from him. That's Bane breaking Batman's back right from Dark Knight Rises. That is a brutal play to end up happening. And it's still certainly a good play for Hype Unit. They get the dive on the ShadowChair, or the DayToRemeber first and ShadowChair. Clearly that can work. But the momentum swing, if they had Fire Giant on all 5 members and now they're pushing, it would have been so different.
It would have been a completely different game. Now, it is worth noting that only 2 members of Trick Babushka have FG. It's only Brandon and ShadowChair. At least the whole team hadn't respawned, and then Brandon gave it to all 5 members. But that's still a pretty big swing to go from having it on 5 of your boys to none of your guys and 2 on the other side. That's pretty devastating.
And one of the things you got to think about is this aggression happening at the Tier 2 tower. That ends up falling in favor of Trick Babushka. The ultimate from Visions forces Trick Babushka to just fall back. They don't have enough information to keep stepping forward. But I bet they're going to be ready for the Uzzy dive next time. That might have been the only time it catches Trick Babushka off guard, and they didn't quite get the capitalization that they needed as Leon goes right to the back line. Does find a big 3-man taunt into the knockup. This could be the fight that they needed. Ultimate from Oboronic does rip through and bring the members of Trick Babushka down quite low, but it still is not enough for them to win the fight. Trick Babushka could turn this one around, but they'll have to do it without Yuji, as Visions claims yet another life this game. Trick Babushka are on the retreat.
Wow, what an initiation from ELLEON. That looked like a suicide mission. And it was, frankly, but somehow he ends up surviving anyways. And Boronic's ultimate does good enough work. Hits 2 members right there. Could have potentially hit 4, but if they know that Kukulkan ultimate's coming, maybe they beads the taunt. It's a little bit of a different fight, hard to say for sure. But that's just a great initiation by your Erlang Shen. A 3-man taunt into a 4-man knockup. And Uzzy right there alongside him. Look at the difference in blinks. 4 seconds between ELLEON and Uzzy. As soon as ELLEON gets all that crowd control, Uzzy's immediately blinking in there to provide Erlang Shen a path out of that team fight so that he's safe enough that everyone has to look at Uzzy instead of just focusing out the Erlang.
But, I mean, if I'm being honest, even with that great initiation, it still felt like a struggle for Hype Unit to even get the kill onto Yuji. And that's about as good of an initiation as you're going to get. He taunted 3 or 4 members into the multi-man knockup on the backside of that, too. And still, they really only end up getting Yuji.
He could have hit 5.
Right,
I mean,
he could have been more. Come on, bud.
Better.
Leon, can you do some more here for us?
Yeah, that was clearly the problem there, was that he only got a 3-man taunt into a 4-man knockup. But you're right. I mean, it's a scary thought to realize that that was best case scenario, and it still wasn't that good.
They do force a defensive ultimate out of Brandon, though. He has to use that Lord of the Afterlife just for the escape. But this could be a potentially risky fight. We're about 31 minutes into this one now. A 3 to 4-man wipe at this point could easily be a death sentence in either direction. So these teams have to make sure now that they're being careful. They don't get caught off guard. A fight over, what is this, Oni Fury this late in the game? I don't know if it's high enough stakes to potentially lose everyone here, but Hype Unit might just be able to grab this one largely uncontested. A lot of Trick Babushka are backing off.
This should be a good fight for Hype Unit, though, because they know that Brandon has no ultimate and no TP now that they see him back in this engagement. Layers has no beads, so that's a concern. But as soon as those beads come up, I wouldn't be surprised to see Hype Unit be the aggressors on this fight. They have the better secure, it just didn't go their way last time.
That's right. Somehow they managed to not quite have it on that last fight. But it looks like this aggression around this Oni Fury may have actually fallen away for Hype Unit. They're starting to fall back, but they do want to stay close enough to play defense on the Oni Fury and not give that one to Trick Babushka for free. Uzzy looking for the little wraparound play, blinks in, finds the knockup. Trick Babushka secure the Oni Fury. Now Uzzy stuck in the back line, below half HP. Taunt comes out from Yuji. Doesn't find a whole lot, but Layers can't get the back line either. Hype Unit have to give up on their aggression.
Good idea, and a great flank by Uzzy. He catches Trick Babushka pretty well off guard. ELLEON still looking for a little bit of fighting on this top side.
And ends up getting stunned out. This is risky from him. He uses the ultimate, but really only finds DayToRemeber and has to start disengaging. Brandon has the Defender of Olympus on him, uses the Lord of the Afterlife, and Layers and Oboronic are all in the back line without a whole lot of peel to try and help them out. The aggression slows for now, though, as Yuji switches target over to Uzzy on the left-hand side, but Trick Babushka want to keep getting aggressive, see if they can push past Leon, finding the taunt onto Visions and locking him down. Leon falls first, Visions stuck inside the damage, and ShadowChair finds himself a double. Now it's Uzzy slowed and trying to find a way back out of here, and DayToRemeber wants 1-2. Suddenly, a 3-for-0 in favor of Trick Babushka.
Oboronic still has B, the need needed him, but this is going to be a tough defense for Layers and Oboronic. Both of them having ults on the way up, but it's going to be a 2 versus 5 to try and defend this mid-Phoenix.
Not easy, but they do still have Layers up, and Oboronic probably the best on defense with this Kukulkan, but how good is it going to be? Trick Babushka are just going to die, blink in, find the taunt onto Oboronic, Sash to keep the CC chain going, and ShadowChair cleans up the easiest kill of his life. Next one is Layers, and he's fighting for his life, does find one, but there's just too much. A double kill for ShadowChair. That's the deicide Nagro. It should be the game as well. Trick Babushka managed to run over Hype Unit.
I mean, I know that there's going to be a lot of Hype Unit fans in the chat feeling like they threw this game, but don't forget, Trick Babushka was in control for, what, it's going to end at 33 minutes. They were going to be in control for 32 and a half.
Yeah.
There was a 30-second window where Hype Unit had to secure that Fire Giant, and they just couldn't do it, and Trick Babushka was able to really control the game for every other moment besides that.
It really is frustrating, though, if you're Hype Unit, because it's such an uphill battle for them, and they did have that window. They opened it just a little tiny bit, and they couldn't quite close it. I mean, an Osiris stealing it with the I mean, that just doesn't happen very often, man.
No.
And it's got to be frustrating.
It really does, especially when I know that the Kukulkan doesn't have ultimate, but Zephyr does an awful lot of damage, and he had poly, so you could even Zephyr, then wait, and then secure with your poly auto.
Right.
Either one of those is going to be way more damage than Spirit Flail.
As you said, though, you got to have the information that the Osiris is there, and I just don't think that they had it. They didn't step forward and get that information. So game number 1 goes to Trick Babushka, but hopefully the rest of the set is just as exciting. Let's get it back over to the desk to break it down.
Thank you very much, Finch, and I appreciate Crab Rave moving us into this crab fact. Did you know that the Japanese spider crab is the world's largest, measuring about 12 feet between its 2 claws? Well, now you do. Drop your favorite crab fact in the chat down below, please. Game number 1 between Hype Unit and Trick Babushka comes to a close, and Gormizer, Trick Babushka, they grab themselves the win.
Yeah, they do, and they do it pretty handily. I mean, it gets close and hairy towards the end there, but they didn't seem like they were too out of control. There was a couple times Hype Unit looked like they could maybe kind of rein the game in, and each time it fell out of their hands.
And it was very, and I agree with kind of aggro towards the end there. The way that went, it's got to be a little tilting for Hype Unit. You have these little leads carved out for yourself, and it just kind of slips through your fingers towards the end. You have to give props to Trick Babushka. They got the win. They were able to fight back from pretty far behind. ShadowChair, though, at 7-1-4. You have Brandon as well on that Osiris at 5-1-10. They had a big impact on
I mean, there's 3 times I have written on here that a fight was started by Hype Unit and then won by Trick Babushka. And it's just, it happened once around a Fury very early on where Trick Babushka were not only able to take the Fury, but then they take the fight right afterward. Then they do it again later, around 19 minutes. They win a huge fight and wipe out Hype Unit. And then they do it again. Well, not necessarily again. They come forward where that Fire Giant looks like it should be one of the easiest things in the world for Hype Unit.
That's
Trick Babushka are going to be able
right?
to kind of come in there and scoop that one away. And it's one of those things. They lost the fight, but they win the war because of things like that. And I also have to give credit, you know, you had mentioned ShadowChair had a beautiful slash line at the very end. Same thing for Brandon, 7-1 and 5-1 respective. But it's this guy, Uzzy, who I think actually did a ton. And it was actually this fight at 19 minutes that is so beautiful. Look how low Mineral is. And he lives another 30 seconds there, by the way. He just jukes really well. I think Uzzy hits 3 3-man taunts. It's just insane play from them. And I mean, when you're playing like that consistently throughout the game, yeah, it takes you 33 minutes, but you seal the deal.
What do you make of the Athena jungle? I mean, obviously it grabs the win, but is this an outlier or something that you can really hold on to?
There are a couple players that like going back to it consistently, and you know, you'll see it in the Pro League every now and then, and you'll see it in the Challenger circuit every now and then. So it's not one of those like, oh man, expect to see it every game, but when it gets pulled out, and if they're not prepared for it, Athena jungle slaps.
And I think it took
like
us
the base.
Right, of course. Yeah. If there's anything it's going to slap like it'd be the base.
Yeah.
The one thing that slaps the hardest. In this case, it's the Athena jungle right up there with the base. Picks and bans to bail us out of whatever
Capital
this bid is. And I'm curious as well if the Yamoja falls as far as she did in the last wave of picks and bans. Because remember, she went through 6. You have to bring her up now. Because
I'll forget until she gets banned otherwise.
Right, so we have to bring it up now. She fell all 6 of the bans to start off, and then first 6 picks as well came and went, and Umoja was not scooped up through any of it. Got the first 3 here, sort of similar. Hercules, Xingqian have been 2 very popular bans to start off the day today and continue to be that into the second game of this set. Camazot's Kukulkan are the next bans. Trick Babushka, they don't have that first pick, so if there's a time to ban Umoja, it would have been then, but it's not.
And it's interesting because Persephone has made it through a couple of times, but she hasn't been as productive, I think, as we typically would see. And I think it's just not even the level of play, but what she's been put up against. She has very particular scenarios in my mind where she just flounders. She can't succeed, even though she's set up for success. I like the fact that she's banned because I think she's going to be more successful more often than not.
Sure.
But once again, the fact that, and now I want to harp on it, Umoja's available and not picked up, it's starting to bother me. I like her. She's good.
Could just be preference by either team. I mean, there are 2 more picks that have to come and go before we'll see if she is completely glossed over again. I mean, there's obviously some priority put into the Umoja because she was banned out 4th overall by Hype Unit in game number 1,
yeah.
right? So that there's some fear that she gets picked up.
They still know she exists, and they're still aware of her, but they're not looking at her.
An Ares hover and an Ares lock here for Hype Unit.
I like Ares.
So do I. He's good.
I will say I like him in very certain scenarios, and I don't know if this is going to be one of those. He does good damage, good crowd control, everything that you would want. The only issue I think I can have with him is the fact that he feels like he takes a little bit longer to get into like the support feeling, but with the way things are going, a lot of aura items specifically in the meta right now, it's going to play well with his passive, plus the way Hype Unit like to play. There's a reason that Hercules is banned out down there, and it's because they want to play aggressive. Ares enables that profusely, profoundly.
Well, Umoja not banned out through any of the 10 bans that the teams have gone for here. It could just come down to something as simple as nobody on these 2 teams, like, they are better at other gods than the Umoja. I find that hard to believe because there's just so much that she brings to the table, but passed up here, it's going to rely on the last 2 picks before she just goes unpicked, unbanned. Hype Unit, they've drafted themselves a very potent composition here, rounding it out with the Medusa.
It's definitely an interesting one as well. I mean, like Odin, Merlin, Thor come up pretty often, and so it's not too surprising to see them. Ares doesn't come up as often, but here paired with the Medusa, who also is not picked up too much. I like what she can bring to the table, though. I think Medusa, 1, is fantastic in team fights, especially in corridors around objectives. But her as a whole, like, she's a mid-game hunter, so you're really looking at her kind of transitioning more or less into an ult machine with crit. I'm interested to see how she fares, or if they even go crit. Maybe they want to go something more pin against a Jorm and a Cerberus on the other side. And I'm kind of baffled. I think Umoja just went from 100% pick ban to less than that, 99%.
Yeah, certainly the potential is there. If it's not 100 to not picked here, it's very high. We're in the mid to high 90s on her pick ban potential there. Cerberus is the final pick here for Trick Babushka. He brings a lot to the table though as well.
Yeah, think Ares, but he's a 3-headed dog now. And admittedly, he also has a little bit more, right? That's just in the ults. He's got a stun that comes in with him. He's got, if you look at everything that's not the ult, then it's completely different. But they're also pretty similar.
Well, Hype Unit, they fall in game number 1 of this 4th and final set of the day. They have a chance to bounce back here in game number 2.
I'm convinced Gormizer's a national treasure. I won't hear anything said differently as we move into game number 2. It's still Fenton aggro here. And I am also surprised we're not seeing more Umoja happen, especially because it's 2 Guardians for Trick Babushka. They definitely wanted a Guardian.
Yeah.
I guess just not Umoja.
I'm pretty sure that's illegal.
Yeah, I think it's against the law.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be, maybe I shouldn't make this joke, but another competitive ruling about this game. Because not pick or banning Umoja is absurd.
It is
to me. I just don't. She does it. There's no way that these comps are better without Umoja, and that's all I'm saying on the matter. It isn't, but that's where I want to stop.
It's find it hard to believe that you could be better off without her. ShadowChair could be piloting the Scylla as well as Leon takes just a ton of extra damage here in this initial fight. And this is one of the things Cerberus can do very well, which is box in lane. It can feel hard to step up against and enables further magic damage for the likes of ShadowChair on this Scylla later on in the game. I feel as though we've said our piece on Scylla already. We're not the hugest fans of her.
I didn't get my turn.
Okay, well, go on ahead and explain to me why why ShadowChair has picked Scylla here.
I don't know. She's not that good.
Well, glad you contributed.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me say my piece. No, I don't know. I mean,
there's plenty of setup for her here, right?
Yeah, there's good setup. She's fine. If you want to play a god that does a lot of damage later on in the game, Scylla can do that. She's capable of it. The numbers dictate that. I think something like a Poseidon looks a lot better to me here personally, but I get it.
Layers might be in some trouble though, as he's gotten aggressive onto the Chaos side of the map. Oboronic now low as well, and the Unbots doesn't teleport to the actual Sacred Monkey. That means that Layers and Oboronic do make it out, but they're heavily poked, and Oboronic having to take, and Layers, what I got to imagine is an early back. Layers elects to stay. It's just so hard to get off your jungle timing.
And that pretty greedy hammer toss from Layers ends up costing him pretty dearly. Nearly kills Oboronic, nearly kills himself by just trying to force Yuji off that red buff, which is still up for the moment, but with the map control that Trick Babushka have, it really is only a matter of time. And I really do like both compositions overall. I think that both have some really good things going for them. I like the idea of putting Visions on Medusa. She is a not particularly safe hunter, and Visions has shown that he sometimes struggles staying alive in these team fights a little bit longer, but at the end of the day, you press Petrify and you're doing something in a team fight. You're getting a slow, a stun, some good damage off somewhere. So I like the idea of that. I like the Ares against this many mobility options. Mineral, DayToRemeber, ShadowChair, and Yuji all can struggle against those chains. So if ELLEON can find the right engagements and be accurate with those chains, it can be a very, very strong pick, but it's also the type of pick that just insta-loses you the game if you fall behind.
And we saw it last game. Leon not afraid to play aggressive. Even when they're at a bit of a deficit, he found some pretty dangerous but ultimately successful setups for his team last game. And Ares is someone that if you're willing to roll those dice a bit or trust yourself to be able to execute even in tough situations, he can absolutely make some big plays happen, just as you were alluding to. And Trick Babushka have to make sure that they're aware of it. They've kind of got a cornered animal here in Hype Unit who don't have their main hunter, and now their backs are against the wall, potentially eliminated from the group stage, and that's when a team like that can be at their most dangerous.
I agree, but I still feel like they have more pressure on them at some level, don't you? I mean,
Hype Unit?
Yeah, I mean, even though they're the ones that have the sub and you know, have nothing to lose, so to speak, they're one game away from elimination. I feel like that would weigh on me a little bit more, being one game away from elimination, understanding that we have to 2-0 from this position. And that definitely gets in your head, for sure it does. I remember a time right before we were trying to qualify to Summerland, I had to play up against Mifflin and Eager, and we know that we needed to win 2-0 in that set because of tiebreakers. That was back when it was only 2-game sets, and it was 3 points for a 2-0, 1 if you split. And that definitely played into the way we were thinking about game one, and then ultimately game two, we ended up losing, but don't let Mifflin hear that because I don't want to talk about it.
But I mean, you got to think about the way that the mentality that Hype Unit took in, right? All this time, you know, you hear all this drab about how console's not quite on that same level, but they fought through last year, had such an impressive performance, and the narrative changed to how not just that this was the best console team, but that they could be competing with these PC teams at a high level, and I doubt they were expecting to stumble here with qualifying. I bet that this team's expectations were, let's come in and shut those guys up. Let's come in and prove that we absolutely can't compete at that level. And now that's starting to it's starting to slip away a little bit through their fingers, and instead, they might not qualify at all. So I think there is something to what you say about maybe that pressure is kind of building up on these Hype Unit boys a bit.
Yeah, I think that I'm sure they do feel that. I mean, I think that anyone who's still making the argument that at least the very top end of console players can't make an impact at the PC level are just willfully inaccurate.
Yeah, I think they proved it last year, right?
They proved it last year. You see it in all the top-end ranked games. There are a lot of console natives that have come over and are in these top-end ranked games. A lot of those players qualified to the group stages. You know, we'll see if they end up actually making it through, but there certainly is a level of competition that these guys can't compete at. And look, regardless of the outcome of this Hype Unit run, we know they're good enough to play in this Might Challenger circuit. We know that they have that potential.
But you just would have liked to have proven it as Layers comes dunking in, finds the Animal of Dawn stun, the wall stun there too, but it's just not enough damage. Mineral manages to just barely get his way out of there as First Blood continues to prove elusive. And Layers has looked really good on the set, but that one game earlier where I thought maybe Layers' gameplay was a bit questionable, he was struggling in player damage, it was this Thor. I know Layers can play the Thor at a really high level, but I just wonder if maybe he's just not clicking on it right now.
Yeah, it hasn't looked that great for him today, and this was a signature pick for him.
It was, absolutely.
All of his career, even back when he first started in the Smite Console League, he was a Thor and Nemesis 2-trick. That's literally all he played, was either Thor or Nemesis. And he's really obviously expanded the god pool since then, but I don't know, I feel like the Thor has not been working for him particularly well. I'm surprised he hasn't gotten some of his other signature selections. Susano comes to mind all the time when I think of Layers hard carrying games. Susano, I think, is a god that we probably haven't seen quite enough of. He took a nerf pretty recently, and maybe that's what's dissuading him, but still feel like he's in a playable state.
I think so too, man. And Layers, like you said, has a lot of gods at his disposal, but he also can play this Thor at a high level, and I'm right there with him, man. If this is what he calls for in a game that you have to win, I trust chaotic purpose, layers of death, whatever you want to call it, right? I trust the call that he makes in that moment. I give him exactly what he asked for. So he has a chance to prove that this Thor can work here in this match. Taking a look elsewhere, it looks like Uzzy is perhaps considering an early Erendite here. We see him sitting on the tier 1 of it right now, but also still has the Morningstar, hasn't finished wherever that's going to be going. So I'm interested to see where Uzzy wants to go with this build.
Yeah, that's odd to me because this means that you're guaranteed to not get pen until 4th, which is really, really late in the build. I think people really underestimate how good flat pen is. Flat pen is worth 3x power, basically. It's so important to your builds because it makes you do true damage to all these carries, and it's huge for you. And without pen, it's pretty hard to kill the tanks, and Batz has to deal relevant damage to tanks. Oftentimes, that's where you're using Fear No Evil, is on the frontliners. Erendite is not an item that we see on Batz that much, but it makes sense, logically. You're using your ultimate and then you're dumping your whole kit. Why wouldn't Erendite be good? Yeah. But I don't know about second item on him. It just doesn't feel like that's the way you want to go.
I'll keep an eye on where Uzzy elects to go with his build path from here. Everyone else is looking fairly standard. That's something I've noticed. Scylla seems to follow that same sort of mana book build, whatever you want to call it, that Kukulkan builds a lot of the time. I gotta imagine that's because Polynomicon just feels so good for Scylla builds, right? So you might as well, if you're gonna have that item in your build around the mana. But Layers is lurking on left. Babushka getting aggressive. I don't think that they know that he's planning an aggressive gank. The dunk should be able to find both of them instantly. Forces out beads, walls, keeps Mineral locked down. He goes to the Stygian Torment, but that's an easy cleanup kill for Hype Unit. First blood off the back of Layers' gank.
Our apologies, Kansas. Of course he can play Thor. Of course he can. The double dunk right on time sets up the first blood and gets the beads from DayToRemeber at the exact same time. That's the sort of play that you need when you're in a position like this, and Layers making a much better early impact than he did last time he had this Thor, where he was a real non-factor throughout the majority of the early game.
You're right, he's looking much better here now, and as you said, taking those beads from DayToRemeber is great. Layers himself can come back over to capitalize on that. Obviously, Leon can on this Ares as well, even potentially Visions if he can find a nice slow. This could be trouble for DayToRemeber.
Though you do have to worry about just blink Ares ulting onto an Xbalanque without chaining first, because then he just uses Rising Jaguar, times that CC immunity, and can immune that pull. So you do have to land the skill shot. You do have to blink chain and then ult, and at that point, you're good to go.
Sequencing it properly if you want to punish the Xbalanque. Looks like, though, still another 90 seconds or so before those beads are going to be back up, so that window is open for a good while. We'll see if DayToRemeber elects to play it a bit safer. Everything else, though, so far looking fairly standard here in these builds. Layers did elect to go with the Crusher here first item. I know sometimes we see a couple other items in that slot, maybe Transcendence, even some Jotuns getting a bit old school lately has been showing up in that slot too, but certainly nothing wrong with the Crusher, as it is the early Erendite for Uzzy.
Wow, he does end up I mean, if he's going to build the gem, or the Gem of Fate, I believe that tier 1 is, then you may as well complete it. It's not exactly, you're not paying 900 gold for 10% CDR because you think it's fun. You're doing it because it's really worth your time to get a really big power item like Erendite. 75 power is an absolute ton. 10% CDR is solid, but again, this means that you're delaying your pen until 4th. Now, maybe he could go into pen right now and then go back and finish on this Morningstar. Maybe turn that into a late-game Heartseeker, build an item or two, and then go back and finish it, but that feels a little bit inefficient for me.
Uzzy gonna have to figure something out to get some pen going here in this build, but I think this Erendite should get some decent value for him. Brandon, could be in a bit of trouble. Still has that World Serpent ultimate and doesn't end up getting collapsed on anyway. In fact, he's got the squad showing up. Yuji is on his way, and ShadowChair make an early rotation too, but over the wall makes it from Hype Unit, which means this I'm a Monster gets exactly that, just nothing. So Leon goes back in, knows the Scylla has to use beads to get away without the I'm a Monster, and forces that cooldown.
Smart. I think that's the right call from ELLEON. Where's Yuji's ultimate there? Uzzy's low on mana. He's not going to have enough to both 2 and 1, so you have to make him make a choice in that spot. Letting him jump for free over the wall does not seem like the best play, and maybe he's thinking, well, I've got no pen. I can't kill him, and I would understand that, but ShadowChair's on the way. I think ShadowChair makes the right play. Use that ultimate for some extra movement speed, get in range, and you should be able to easily drop that ult and then root off of Fear No Evil, or just even cancel it to root and guarantee the kill, but Yuji a little bit too patient for my liking.
Hype Unit wants to start this fight up. They know that I'm a Monster's down and ShadowChair had to use his speed, so he can't come in, but it's a bait. Right into the air goes Layers and dunking back down, but ShadowChair evades it with the Sentinel. They end up getting nothing off the Anvil of Dawn, and they don't start the Gold Fury. That opportunity is squandered.
But at least they get Darkest of Nights. It's something, but it's not what you wanted in that spot for sure. It's definitely lacking because Layers' ultimate has been very impactful so far in this game. I like the idea, but ShadowChair just a little bit too seasoned, too much of a veteran to fall for that bait.
That's a great point. ShadowChair has been around, I want to say roughly forever at this
give or
point.
take.
Yeah, somewhere around there. Maybe 1 or 2 less than a forever, but certainly close to it, as my man's been playing Smite for a long time, so baiting him into a Gold Fury, certainly not the first time that one's happened, especially after you just forced his beads. He was ready for it. Sentinel's back towards the safety of that red buff and is able to make it back out of there. And this game's still incredibly even, aggro. We're approaching 13 minutes, but look at the gold. Virtually nothing separating them in terms of gold, nothing in experience. These two teams are deadlocked.
It's been close so far, but when you look at the late game options that Trick Babushka has, it's hard to move away from their composition should this game go 35, 40 minutes like a lot of the games that they have. Hype Unit has tools at that point in the game. I mean, Thor late game is a monster now because you get absolutely one shot off of that ult, but oBoronic's going to be doing a lot, but Medusa isn't exactly a late game hunter. Uzzy's playing Odin, who isn't as bad late game as he used to be, but still not great. Ares loses a lot of the effectiveness because he just doesn't do as much damage at that point in the game. Whereas you look at Scylla, Xbalanque, Jorm, Batz, all of those gods scale very, very well late in the game.
We're going to have that Cerberus setting them up to do more magical damage as well, shredding some of those protections in the late game makes a ton of sense for Trick Babushka.
And look, a 2+ second stun is good all the time.
Yes.
It's never bad. So Cerberus stays pretty relevant even through the late game.
He'll have some options at his disposal. Uzzy rotating over a bit early. Brandon finally now catching up here with them, so they know this Odin is nearby. A couple of low HP bars for Trick Babushka. I think that's why we see some backs coming through at the very least for Scylla. So they probably won't be planning to get aggressive. Uzzy even uses the leap, but there's really just not much fighting going to be happening over there in the jungle. Maybe they'll come over to look for Brandon. That should force his ultimate out defensively. We'll use a couple of these charges for offense, but gonna have to back up with these last couple and get on out of there. As Gold Fury being started by Trick Babushka, and I don't know that Hype Unit are aware.
Don't think so, because Layers has ultimate, and that's a juicy dunk right there. Vision's gonna realize something's going on. He's got Petrify.
That ultimate's the best chance for the contest. He uses it, and Hype Unit strip it away. The sub stepping up for him that time when they need him. Good call from Vision.
And he nearly killed Yuji too. A nice little Viper shot right as Yuji was backing up. Made it pretty easy. That's what I'm saying, man. I mean, you don't have to be in the perfect position all the time. Petrify is a pretty wide cone. You're gonna find your way, and it's a pretty good Petrify. That's a huge play by Vision. Just confidence-wise. He knows he hasn't had the best day.
Yeah.
His teammates know he hasn't had the best day. Him stepping up and making a big play in the do-or-die game. I know ELLEON pretty well. No way he's not popping off after that.
You're right, man, and this is the kind of thing, there's such a momentum-based squad, and I don't know, maybe a bit out of line on this one, but kind of an emotional squad too, I would say, for Hype Unit.
Sure.
These guys, I think when they get a little bit of something going, they know how to grab onto that. They do get the Pyromance from the back end of that too, and you're right, Leon talks a lot in these games for them, and I think that's good. He's going to make sure the squad's feeling it after that.
You have to pick up your boy after a play like that, and that's a big play.
It is.
By Visions. It gives them the ever so slight gold lead, but you turn gold leads like this into vision leads, and with gods like Merlin, Ares, and Thor, you can turn vision leads into kills pretty quickly.
Well, Leon clearly is feeling himself as we thought. Thor took to the sky as well, does end up dunking down. Has to use the beat the second he lands because I fear no evil, but Mineral locks down. They find one, make it 2 as Uzzy falls as well. And momentum-based play, emotional play, Hype Unit right back in it.
Really good flicker in by Boronic. He wants to keep that CC chain going. A beautiful stun by Layers, make sure. And hey, it's almost like ELLEON eats a whole CC chain and takes no damage because there's no pen there for Uzzy.
Yeah.
I think that's certainly, I don't think it's ever enough to kill him if he has a Jotuns or a Crusher in that spot, but he's an awful lot lower and probably can't step up to try and finish it off. This build is really, really good for killing squishies, so you have to be ulting squishies every fight. It's okay to build like this, it's okay to do that, but you then have to play around it, and we just haven't seen that second part.
Uzzy ends up taking a spill there. Obviously, the Hydras has a ton of synergy with the Unbat's kit. This is going to give him a little bit more CDR as well to go along with the Erendite CDR2. So like you said, not a bad build, but it just means you do have to play a bit differently. I just don't know if that's been there yet for Trick Babushka. This has actually been a pretty good early game for Hype Unit. And the Gold Fury almost gets snuck away, and in comes Visions to manage to make a play to grab that one away from them. And then that fight in right looks like a good one for Trick Babushka, but Leon starts that one off. Layers comes dunking in. They're right back in it with a 3-kill lead and a 4,000 gold lead too. There's not a lot up on the map for them to go capitalize with right now, but the next fight, Hype Unit are slightly favored.
I think they might be even more than slightly. They're outright favored. Have a 3K lead at 17 minutes. It isn't huge, but you'll start to see an itemization lead start to materialize. Again, it should be vision prioritization for them and making sure that they've got perfect vision around what is going to be an Oni Fury in about a minute and a half. That's going to be a huge objective for them. They've got a good level lead in jungle in particular and in mid. You've got a 2-level lead for both your mid and your jungle. That's big. Play around that. This should be, we are on Oni Fury right away, and they have to know that they need to fight because they don't have secure compared to Scylla. ShadowChair has the best secure on the map by a mile, so it's time to step up and get that fight going in your favor. I mean, look at the itemization difference. Charon's going for Boronic, lost artifacts for ShadowChair. That's a massive difference in power level.
It's a big gap favoring Boronic. Something that Hype Unit has done, though, that really well this game is that they've done the first step and then followed up later, forcing the beads out from ShadowChair early on or forcing the beads out from DayToRemeber to set up for these fights. And I think that's why we're seeing Leon get aggressive here. He wants to see if he can find some beads, but they just take the pull instead. Fear no evil there for the follow-up, but Yuji's low. Layers considering the dive, but I think Uzzy might be out of range. Not going to find him with the Anvil of Dawn. And they're not going to be able to find Mineral either. But this is what I was talking about. This is that setup for the play for the Fury later.
Absolutely. Fury in 45 seconds. We know Uzzy won't have ult. I mean, he's going to have a decent amount of CDR. He's got 20% already, but that's not going to be enough to guarantee that. Now, that also means that Layers won't have ult and ELLEON won't have ult. But those are harder ults to get in there and disrupt a Gold Fury fight with than something like Fear No Evil or even Darkest of Nights for DayToRemeber. And you know, no Blink there for Uzzy, so get your backs off now because you need to be there ASAP. 20 seconds. Now, this is where a good leader will keep their team on top of these timers. We need to be there as it spawns and pulling it right away because the clock's ticking on Uzzy's ult.
Looks like most of them should be there. Layers are going to go for speed first, so he'll be a bit delayed in terms of making it there, but the
Junglers, bro.
Central positioning is controlled by Hype, and you're right, man. Speed is important. They're going to grab these oracles here first to try and control the neutral vision around this objective. Should make it harder for Trick Babushka to know what's going on, but they're certainly nearby. They lost the opportunity for this to be a secret, so now they're just got to try and go with the actual fight advantage.
Brandon's pretty tanky at this point. We haven't seen a whole lot of action over there in the solo lane. He's a little 18, but has a Divine Ruin pickup, which is insanity to me. I mean, if you were against a Hell or something like that, I would get it. Why do you need anti-heal this badly? He should be a target, absolutely. Boronic should be able to blow him up.
A lot squishier than the Jormungandrs normally are, and you're right, it's not as if there's a ton of healing that you think you have to shut down right away that motivates it, but Hype Unit have started up the Oni Fury, and Trick Babushka are decently zoned.
No,
is the only one that's going to make it in, but the Fury ends up getting leashed. Hype Unit don't want to stick around. Instead, Layers takes to the sky, eyes the backline, looking for ShadowChair, who's grouped up on top of the other backline. You just can't stack up like that, and Layers finds an easy dunk, a 2 for 0. though, to start this fight off, and now Yuji is in some trouble as well. He starts to jump away, but Uzzy closes the gap. 3 for 0, make it 4 as they shut down Brandon as well.
I wonder if they're even going to worry about this Oni Fury. It looks like they won't. Head straight towards Fire Giant, and for the love of God, someone zone on Hype Unit, because we've seen this story before, but a great fight, and there's a great highlight of one of Scylla's greatest weaknesses. You're in your ultimate, you're a sitting duck that entire duration. Layers knows that she can't beads and dash away, so just finds an easy dunk. It's just bad spacing, and Yuji's right there with her.
Fire Giant should go down for Hype Unit easily here now. No way for DayToRemeber to come back in and try and defend that one. And this is the Hype Unit team that I know so well, man, from having watched them over these last few years. Even when their backs are against the wall, just like I was saying, there's no quit in this team. They don't give up, man, and they absolutely came back fighting. Now up about 8,000 gold or so, as you said, favored at this point. And look how many towers are up on the map for them to go get as well, Aggro. Plenty that they're going to be adding to this gold lead for themselves on the back of this Fire Giant push. But talk to me about Trish Babushka's base defense. How do you like this team on the Siege defense?
I don't very much. I mean, Jorm is okay because you can just lay down those pools, and they're pretty annoying to walk through. They can slow your advance pretty well.
Oh, this is nice.
Scylla's not great on the defense because she has to get too close in order to drop the ability, and you can drop it and then walk away and blow it up, but that's pretty much your only guaranteed offense in the kit. Xbalanque's defense is good. Yuji's defense on Batz is fine. You can find good Fear No Evils, but he's so far behind, man. I mean, he's level 16. Layers is level 20. Layers, if it's the 4-1 split and it's Layers versus Yuji, I'm taking Layers every time. He's up by 1 million.
Look where Trick Babushka is, though. It looks like they're going to try and take this opportunity to strip what farm they can. This has forced the teleport out from Uzzy, who does rotate over to defend, but there's a lot of members lying in wait here from Trick Babushka. Fear No Evil pulls him back. I'm a monster. Nearly buries him, and Uzzy gets gobbled up. And now Leon is rotating over as well, but he's just one Ares. He can't defend this. Meanwhile, the rest of Hype Unit are going to get the tier 2 tower in left. Trick Babushka managed to get something out of this.
Yeah, but that decision from Uzzy just makes no sense at all to me. Why would you ever go in that moment and jump up and down? You're just guaranteeing that you die. You trade your tier 2 and just group as 5 on the Phoenix and push. I mean, who cares about your right tier 2? You're up by so much that 1,500 gold is basically irrelevant. There's no need to ever defend that. You just stay as 5 and group up and push that Phoenix, and sure, maybe they get that tier 2 and then back before you get on Phoenix. That's fine. Yeah. You're willing to trade that. That's not a game loser. That was a very, very poor decision from Uzzy, who's really had a very good day despite Hype Unit's overall struggles.
And it ends up costing them a lot of this momentum. Now, instead of staying grouped up and threatening multiple of those tier 2 towers, they get the one in left, and they kind of have to settle for that, at least for now. They got another minute and 20 seconds to work with for another push, but I would say a good 30 seconds to a minute of this Fire Giant time was sucked away from them because of this play from Trick Babushka and Uzzy's rotation.
Easily. I mean, Trick Babushka know they're never defending a tier 2, so why would we stand there and wait for us to lose the tier 2? Why wouldn't we go push somewhere else on the map and get something for ourselves? It makes so much sense.
Wow.
And now instead of pushing right side where there's towers guaranteed, they're grouping up on left where there's no more guaranteed gold for them to take. Maybe they're going to try for the Phoenix with 50 seconds left, but that seems ambitious.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to hinder what could have been a dominant lead. I mean, you add in an extra, what, 3,500, almost 4,000 gold to this. I mean, it's such a different game. Instead, Hype Unit are largely just falling back here now. I mean, obviously they're still in control. This is not doom and gloom, but I don't want to mischaracterize this, but it just feels like they definitely could have gotten more.
I agree. It's just not particularly stellar macro play, and that's about as nicely as I can put that. Not particularly stellar.
Well, they're going to get, it looks like, this tier 1 in right at the very least. Fire Giant going to fall off in the next 15 seconds, and Trick Babushka are absolutely still down. It is questionable for them to come out and start taking these fights here, so Hype Unit can still get some work done. In fact, it looks like Trick Babushka are not going to set up for any kind of defense whatsoever, so they are going to still end up getting this tier 2 tower in right. This is definitely still a good push for Hype Unit, but now the 3 of them are going to threaten the tier 2 in mid, which could cancel out some of that gold they just got. They got to be careful, though. Layers rotating over could easily punish this, and I think that's the call. Trick Babushka now backing. Layers goes up, gonna dunk on DayToRemeber, who's stuck behind greedily to get the tier 2 tower, and ends up having having to pay for it with his beads.
That's, at least he gets it, but that's huge to get the beads from DayToRemeber. Again, it's not the best target because he still has that option to get CC immunity while dashing away, but it opens up the door for this composition very, very well. I mean, having no beads against the Ares Thor comp is not where you want to be.
Not at all. He is going to be very, very vulnerable. Again, the chain from Leon is still critical, like you highlighted earlier, because there is some CC immunity on the back end of that Rising Jaguar, but easily just so much more vulnerable without those beads. They did get the Tier 2 tower, though. That negates some of the gold that Hype Unit got from their Tier 2 tower. So this is still only about a 9,000 gold difference, when I think there's an argument that there could have been about another 3,000 or so of cushion on that for Hype Unit. But they should be able to get this Fire Giant for free. I don't think Babushka can come out and fight this and then look to make another push.
Layers isn't left, so it's going to be way too late to defend, but maybe Layerssss is going to be in a little bit of trouble should Babushka realize that they know that there's no way that anyone's around him at this point. It is worth noting that in the one game that Hype Unit won earlier on today, they were ahead by a lot. It took them a long time to end that game.
That's true.
That is not what you want against this composition. As I highlighted, there's a pretty good late game for Babushka. Got to clean up this late game, and you can't give teams that are this good a whole lot of time. They will make you pay for it every time.
Well, looks like Babushka have now rectified some of your earlier critiques in terms of the builds. It was Soul Reaver and Karen's coin for ShadowChair, so plenty of pen now available for him. And then the Jotuns into the Titan's Bane for Uzzy, so plenty of pen for him as well. Even the Void Stone there for Brandon that we were begging for from Yuji's Athena earlier on. That means that there's going to be a ton of effective pen for Babushka. I know they're fighting into a decent lead, but if they're isolating Leon or Uzzy, I don't think they're going to be as tanky as they might have thought.
I mean, this is maybe more than a decent lead, but I agree, there's certainly cause for concern.
Yes, it's a lot of lead.
If you're Hype Unit, it's not going to be as easy, because think about the last time that Babushka fought you. That was 2 full items ago.
It was.
And sometimes that's hard to keep that power spike in mind, to understand how strong you think you've been getting all this farm, we're getting towers, we're getting Fire Giant, we've gotten 2 Furies. No way that they've gotten anywhere near as strong as we have, and that's true that Hype Unit has gotten stronger, but Babushka had a lot to get strong with. Remember, they split pushed in mid, they split pushed on right. They got a lot of farm during this downtime, which is all you can really ask for a team. No one's sitting on Tier 1 or Tier 2 of an item. They're sitting, I mean, yes, ShadowChair is a full item behind oBoronic, but he's still got 5 full items, and that's usually going to be pretty close to good enough for a Scylla.
They'll be doing a lot of their of all the damage they'll eventually be doing, right? A lot of it is still here for them in terms of these builds, but obviously Hype Unit still favored. But as you said, they have stalled out at this exact point in games before. Babushka, with only 1 killed in their name, have to find the defense. Yuji, already incredibly low, has to fall back. That was the shell used from Mineral, as well as it looks like the beads from Yuji. So now Hype Unit even more favored in this next fight.
I wonder if Layers hit him with a hammer. That's the only thing that I can imagine do that much damage. No way Uzzy did all that by himself.
Mid Phoenix appears to be the call. 4 members of Hype Unit there. They'll send Layers by himself for the 4-1 split in right, and they'll have Brandon nearby to try and defend, since he can rotate over to the fight with that World Serpent at any time. Is this 4-1 split the one you like here with Layers off by himself?
Yes, he's the one who can 1v1 basically at anybody and still stay alive while putting enough pressure on the Phoenix. Yuji can't be the one to defend it anymore because he lost bead, so then he's just dead to a wall. Can't do it with him.
Darkest of Nights from DayToRemeber to try and slow down the aggression from Hype Unit. Uzzy has used the cage already, but what a fear no evil from Yuji to dissect the entire fight. Visions has been taken out of this instantaneously. That is a rejection from Babushka. Get out of our base.
That was real quick on the ADC death right there,
Woo!
And that was Blink auto, or Blink Fear No Evil auto 3 auto, I believe. That's what insta-killed Visions. Didn't even get a relic off.
He did not.
And that's where you got to have some good vision in these little nooks so you can see exactly where these Blink engagements are going to come from. And again, the lack of competitive experience as an ADC for Visions, I think, is very, very apparent for Hype Unit so far. And this is where that late game potential for Babushka is far better than that of Hype Unit. They just have the better late game comp. It's still not there yet. I mean, everybody on Hype Unit is full build. No one on Babushka is yet outside of Brandon. But we're not that far off. So I think that you got to be a little bit scared now if you're Hype Unit.
And this is kind of what you were alluding to, I think, right? It's a question of thresholds when we're talking about the deficit for Trick Babushka right now. And I think they've crossed enough of a threshold where exactly like that, if they find the initiation they're looking for, they can absolutely blow up a target or two with their current iteration, the way that their team looks right now. And Vision's got a first-hand lesson in it underneath that Tier 1 tower. And I know he made the big hero play for them on the Gold Fury. I think, personally, that sparked their momentum and got them to this lead.
Agreed.
That play he made in the Gold Fury. But look at the player damage charts. He's dead last. The absolute bottom in this Medusa game. Gets caught out without using a single relic on that mid fight. It just has not been enough.
To be fair to Visions, he does have DayToRemeber just above him.
That's a fair point, right?
Neither ADC is really tearing it up, to say the least. But that's just saying that neither of them have done enough in this game. Not that Visions has done enough.
Sure, but you're right. It's not as if he's particularly far behind his direct opponent. Hype Unit now in position for this Fire Giant. And do you like this call from Trick Babushka? I know they won that last fight, but it's still a hefty deficit. I don't think they can come out and fight.
And this one's enhanced, which is a pretty big deal. It's a pretty big difference from the last Fire Giant. That makes me lean that maybe they should have been there. Again, they've got the far better secure. Maybe ShadowChair can make a play, but when you're down by this much and you just won the defense last time around, you're not playing with fire. I think there is a pretty good argument, though, that oBoronic did not have relics during that, and Trick Babushka had all their relics up. So that lack of ward vision really hurts. It's really hard to go into the teeth of the enemy team and try and find the guy who's going to be the furthest back, even when he doesn't have relics. But I understand the thought process. I think that either way is pretty defensible to me.
Hype Unit gonna grab this Fury before they make their push. They've got the Fire Giant around their way, so this should be easy enough for them. In the late game, Oni Fury almost certainly got to be the most valuable one. Gives you those extra waves with which to push with, and should threaten Trick Babushka when they make that same split that they made last time, sending layers off on their own. So you see those waves down at the bottom of your mini-map now. They show up on the map much easier, and that's the one to keep your eye on to threaten the base.
Should be a pretty good split, and I like what everyone's doing. Uzzy's pushing up this wave in right. There's a mistake that a lot of teams make, is that they don't push up the third wave. A lot of times you're doing the 4-1 split. You're not really worried about that third lane. Why not? Take this time. This is where I have no problem with Hype Unit wasting some of their Fire Giant.
Yeah.
Because you're ending if you win the fight. You're ending no matter what. So let's make sure that every Phoenix has something that Trick Babushka has to be prepared for.
And that should make sure that this, instead of that Oni wave getting stalled kind of near Fire Giant, right, in the midpoint, or maybe even a little bit near Tier 2.
It would get there eventually.
Yeah, it'd be much mitigated by the time it got there, so this is a lot better for Hype Unit, and they've got a decent split going on here for now. 3 over in left, 2 in mid, and already Brandon had to come over to deal with that Oni wave, so they're getting aggressive. Leon has already moved in. Left side Phoenix taking quite a bit of damage, but Fear No Evil catches Leon underneath the Phoenix. He starts to take a bunch of extra damage. Layers takes to the sky, though, jumps down, and ShadowChair is the target. They've already gotten 2. Mineral and DayToRemeber both fall. Uzzy falls as well. Hype Unit may have stumbled last time, but they're not stumbling here. Brandon barely makes it up to the ultimate, but they're favored. oBoronic cuts him down. They're going to move right into the Titan room and grab this second game.
Now that time, as soon as Darkest of Nights goes out, Visions immediately just turns and dashes away. He's like, no sir, I'm not worried about any of that. Uzzy comes in, blink Fear No Evil, but Visions is already long gone. oBoronic was on the tail end of it as well. They didn't get caught with the totem right behind them. And all of a sudden, the fight's really, really easy and really, really free for them. Again, wave control was really critical there. Uzzy forcing Brandon all the way to that right-hand side makes it very, very easy for Hype Unit to take that 5-on-4.
Well, after game 1, I hope Trick Babushka did not think that it was going to be easy for them. Hype Unit do not go down easily. Game number 3, the decider for who can make it out of groups, going to be happening after the desk breaks it down.
We've had little trickles of these low-kill games today, but at 13 kills, 34 minutes or so into this one, Hype Unit slow and steady wins the race. They're able to grab themselves the win. And remember, in game right now, we talked a little bit about the SPL and all that fun stuff that's coming up right now. You're able to jump in and get your hand on some cosmetics. You got ward skins, avatars, all that sort of fun stuff. In 1 week's time, the SPL is going to be starting up, so make sure to jump in, get your hands on your favorite team's cosmetics as we move towards the SPL season kicking off. Gormizer still with me here on the desk to talk about game number 2 rather, that Hype Unit was able to clean up.
And clean is the best term for it, because that's what that game was from them. There was like, what, 2 deaths total for their side? Maybe 3 like at the end, but it was just from the get-go, something that went so smoothly for them. They made the right calls. They just played good, clean smite for them. Yeah, 2 total deaths, 1 on Uzzy, 1 on Visions. And Visions made a huge play early on as well when he was able to steal away a Fury for them. And it's just moments like that. You get Leon going 4-0-5. Like, there's really not much to dive into. They just played great smite over Trick Babushka.
Yeah, it was clean and concise. I mean, there's hardly anything. You look at Trick Babushka, ShadowChair had 1 kill, bigyuji had 1 kill, and that is all they had going for them in this game. So really, there's not much else. It's a slow, steady kind of choking out of all the objectives around the maps. You know, you're 20-some-odd minutes into this game, and there's only a handful of kills on the board. I don't know if you call it cautious, but patient, I think is a good way of looking at it here from Hype Unit. They let the game come to them. They took the advantages where they found them, and it worked out.
I mean, look at this. This is going to be your second blood of the game, and it was 16 minutes in. These teams played slow early on, and cautious, I think, is the word that you use that's more applicable, where it's just like, it was a slow pace, but realistically, it's because so much relies on that. For Hype Unit specifically, Hype Unit lose that, and they're not going forward to the Challenger circuit. They needed this game not only to go in their favor, but to play out at that pace and the way it did, because otherwise they are out of there completely. So they keep themselves not only alive in the set, but alive in the group stages right now to be able to find themselves that spot.
And that means Game 3 is a decider here. Whoever takes this game moves themselves into the SCC full-time here. And hey, so let's jump into picks and bans and get this one going. I love seeing that Thor come out for Layers in the last pick and ban phase. I think finally we started to see some more big impact from that Thor pick. Layers, certainly a guy who's made his impact in the jungle today. So I was very happy to see them kind of pivot back towards that. You know, overutilized, underutilized remains to be seen. But I think a very good showing for Thor for Layers in that one.
What I'm wondering is going to be how big this portion transitions, right? Do we see Yamoja get forgotten again? Does she come through? Is she big? Trick Babushka now being your first pick, it's going to be, I think, a little more weight to whatever they grab over there, right? Because similar bans, Odin now on the list there. Most of that will come down to what are you feeling comfortable with? This pick, I think, actually might be the most important first pick of the day, period.
I mean, I'm glad you bring up Yamoja again. We kind of heavily dove into her in the last pick ban phase, but obviously what we're seeing are 2 teams that aren't super open to picking her right now. There's other priorities for these 2. So I wouldn't be surprised if we, again, see Yamoja completely foregone. Merlin, though, prioritized over the Persephone this time. It's normally been one answered with the other. But Trick Babushka liked Merlin enough to grab him up first.
I personally prefer Merlin, but that's just because I can play Merlin. Persephone is very high skill cap, and a lot of players at this level are going to be able to make her look good. But even if you look at it, Trick Babushka tried to play her earlier, and ShadowChair just couldn't get it all functioning the way that he wanted to. You would set up, he'd have his garden set up for himself, he'd be in a good position, and then it wouldn't matter at the end of the day. He just didn't have the burst damage that you're going to have out of some of the other mages. And Merlin doesn't necessarily have the burst damage, but he has a lot of burn damage, which is translated very well for a lot of teams today into that late game. But Persephone on the other side for Hype Unit, along with the set, is a very dangerous way to start off this game. Not for them, but for Trick Babushka, because Trick Babushka now have to deal with 2 very strong picks.
Well, you saw what Layers was able to do on that set in the previous set, and it was wild. And so they're playing with fire here, letting Hype Unit scoop that one up. Athena jungle, though, was what we saw last time Athena was picked up. Potentially maybe what we're looking at again here. Naja's continued to be a contested pick here in this set. Yamoja is hovered. Gormizer is hoping that it happens, but it's another Ares. The handy, what is that? Handy dandy notebook goes flying, and I guess that's maybe all you need to know about this one is it's Ares prioritized.
Where is she?
Nowhere. She's not on your screen.
Where'd my notebook go?
It is way down there.
Oh, man.
And now you're useless, right? Everything that you have,
all of my knowledge is in that book.
And
look,
we need an assistance from the gods to get this one given back here.
There we go.
A hand from off stage scoops that one in. So Gore now is useful with his notes given back.
Look, I'm just gonna tell you, you can't sit down in your thinking chair and think without a handy dandy notebook.
Gore, you're too good, man. You're too good for the rest of us. How is anyone supposed to compete with Gore as your co-commentator. You can. It's a fruitless effort. There's no reason to do it.
I think I've actually provided almost nothing to this.
You provided all great
said
content.
Persephone's pretty good, right? And that's about all I've done.
Ares is pretty good, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was like, what, 4-0-5 last game? That was pretty solid.
Hey, Bellona picked up for the first time here in NA, 0% pick rate, but we're going to get our first look.
So, wait, Bellona, how does it feel to be locked in?
Good.
There we go.
What was that? She's locked in here for the first time, and this is a pivotal game. The winner of this one moves in to the SCC, so rolling the dice on Bellona at an important time. 100% win rate on that Medusa,
right,
thanks to literally the last game.
Here, all right, Bellona's locked in here. Trick Babushka.
My fault.
They really need to start this game earlier. That threw me off. They need to start this game strong. I'm looking towards that solo lane, specifically towards this Bellona. She's got to go big. She's out of here.
Well, it's a game 3, winner take all. John Finch, it's all yours.
Happy to take it. Let's move into game number 3. Layers is back on this set, which had a ton of success from early on. I'm just a bit surprised because he had that return to glory with that Thor. DayToRemeber takes a ton of extra poke from these chains from Leon, but it won't be enough to threaten that first blood. But it's funny because with the Thor game, we were saying, why don't you go back and play the set, right?
I suppose so.
What's Layers supposed to do? I don't know.
Continue winning games for his team. That's what he should do. By the way, that is the best deck segment we're going to have all year.
Oh, no way we're topping that, right?
For free. Dave, confused at what he did himself, always slays me. That is all.
Yeah.
That's easy money for me.
Yeah, have you ever seen like a pet like wake itself up while it was asleep or something, right?
That's
It
Dave.
felt like that energy, didn't it, for Dave? He's like, huh? What? It was him.
What happened? But listen, I do think that I agree with Goremizer, first of all, that again, the fact that there's no Umoja in this game is absurd. And I do not like the Ares pick this time around. Last game it made sense. There were a lot of dashes that you had to worry about that got crippled out. This game, I mean, Trick Babushka picked a couple gods that it still gets, still have trouble against Ares. Merlin was their first pick. That really struggles against Ares a lot. Athena doesn't care that much. Bellona doesn't care that much. Naja doesn't care that much. Hachiman is a long duration CC immune ultimate. You can pull him off of it, but it's not exactly easy.
Layers has some aggression up against Uzzy, but Uzzy has the backup from ShadowChair, so he makes it right on out of there. But Leon clearly comfortable with this Ares pick, enough to come back to it here again. He had a great game on it in game number 2, but as you said, it just doesn't quite line up with these pieces nearly as well as what we saw from it the last time. Now, I think the good news is when you pair it with something like a Persephone and even potentially a Medusa, you've got quite a few things that ask for your purification beats here in this match, so maybe he can find some value in that way, but doesn't quite line up as well.
I agree. And you look at Trick Babushka, and their composition centered around this Naja has the same problem it did in the game that they won with basically the exact same composition. They don't have the follow-up off of Naja ult. Now, that didn't stop them from winning last time around, but I think that it's important to realize that sometimes you win in spite of things instead of because of things. And this is still not my favorite composition from Trick Babushka. We'll see if Hype Unit has learned how to play against it a little bit better than they did last time.
Layers was lurking in the jungle, but looks like he didn't like his opportunity, so he will not gank. Something to note, when they played this matchup out last time, DayToRemeber did get a pretty substantial lead over Visions, just in terms of the way the lane matchup went. I think there were multiple solo kills that game. I wonder if that's going to happen as much now. The Medusa a lot more defensive with the CC immune ultimate available and that dash to get her out of trouble. Vision should be able to tread water, I think, a little bit better over here in this long lane. How do you see it going?
I agree, but at the same time, Hachiman has a lot better time playing aggressively compared to Xbalanque. Xbalanque, he dashes you dash away, and we kind of wash our hands of the engagement. You dash away from Hachiman, and he just hops up on the horse and ults you.
Right.
That's a lot harder to deal with a lot of times than exactly what that Xbalanque would bring. So I think that Medusa is safer, yes, but At the same time, Hachiman doesn't let you play that safe a lot of the time.
I mean, a better defensive option, but against a better offensive option this time, huh? So perhaps
that's
they
the right
just
way to say it.
they just step up one step each on the stairwell, and maybe it doesn't end up being a whole lot different. Interesting way to look at it is we've got some level 5s ticking in already, at least for oBoronic in the middle lane on that Persephone. Starts with the restored artifact, as opposed to ShadowChair, who gets those cooldown boots online as soon as possible for a little bit of that extra mobility, and has the lost artifact, so we might be seeing the Doom Orb from him yet again.
I would expect so. This is the start that you go with Doom Orb, because you can't start with Doom Orb. It's 1600, or the tier 2 of Doom Orb, the Cursed Orb. You can't start with that because it's 1600 gold, so get your boots, you get the Lost Artifact in there for some MP5, which Merlin desperately needs way more than Lost Artifacts can provide. It's another reason why Doom Orb's really good on him, because it has a lot of MP5, and Merlin burns through mana very, very quickly. But oBoronic likely going to end up going for a Chronos Pendant, which I like quite a bit on Persephone. We saw, I believe it was ShadowChair play the Persephone, or whoever was playing it last time. They went for the Book of Thoth. Her scaling's pretty solid, so I can understand it, but I vastly prefer the CDR. You just want as many ults on that character as you can get.
Such a strong team fighting ultimate. I mean, maybe even better than No Escape in some cases, man, as good as that ability is too.
Definitely.
I mean, it just covers so much ground and forces so much response from the opposition if they want to clear it out. I mean, in the best case scenario, everyone's turning around and autoing it, they can get that person that's in the cage out and moving on as quickly as possible, and that alone buys so much time for your team. Just that force, so you do want a ton of those. oBoronic, I think, poised to have a pretty good game here on this Persephone. And like I said, if he can get some relics forced out with that, it'll make Leon's job easier on this Ares.
Or Ares forces out the relics and Persephone wins the fight with Grasp of Death. I mean, it's pretty easy to win the fight with either one of those ultimates. Sometimes can be tough for oBoronic if his one isn't up to follow up effectively off an Ares ult. That's something that you want your mage to be able to do the majority of the time, and oBoronic certainly can, but it's a little bit sketchy at times. If you don't have your plants down, you don't have your one up, there's not a great way for you to follow up off of Ares ult.
And we can talk about Yuji's build, I feel like, again here too, because they have a good idea of how that's going to go, right? It's going to be very likely the Stone and Binding right with this option, and then just defense kind of from there on, as he wanted to make sure he was more of a tank presence. But I do think they were wanting for some extra damage for one more source of like a bruiser presence last game. Hopefully Yuji adjusts it, or they just had to deal with it here this time as Layers gets aggressive, but Brandon was ready.
Ultimate's still up for Brandon, so there's no way that kill is happening. It's just Layers is going to be there, may as well force him back a little bit, do a little bit of extra poke damage. Uzzy's build does reduce Brandon's power, so it makes it a little bit easier to take those fights.
Leon uses the ultimate mineral, has his own ultimate there defensively, so he does not get pulled in, so they end up trading support ult for support ult. But the Grasp of Death catches Yuji right on the tail end. That means Layers can start moving in, trying to get aggressive, but Defender of Olympus allows for the reposition. Yuji somehow still standing, but finally Layers gets to him, finds the first blood.
That's one of the first times I've seen that in competitive play, the ability to just, he tossed the 2 out and the clone killed him. with the auto attack because he was that low. Just a great ultimate from oBoronic. Have we talked about how good Persephone ultimate is yet?
No, we didn't talk a whole bunch about how that could be a potentially team-finding winning ultimate.
Right, that you should build CDR so you can get more of them or anything like that. Yeah, that ult real good, by the way. ShadowChair flicker is up, but can't create enough distance between himself and the wall, so that guarantees that he's going to have to use the beads, and it locked down both Mineral and Yuji.
Mineral aggressive one more time with the sash. But this time, everyone waiting, perhaps ill-advised for Mineral that time, and Visions punishes him summarily and shuts him down. And Visions made the rotation to mid earlier, too. You saw him rotate over, and I think use the Petrify in mid lane. So Visions clearly feeling more comfortable in this Medusa and has been playing more active.
I agree. I mean, I don't think we see Visions dash in 2 games ago in order to get that root. That was a good play, understanding that Mineral didn't have ult. He shouldn't be doing what he's doing right there. And having your Naja fall behind, when you don't have that great follow-up off of the Naja ult, that just makes it all the more imperative that Naja stays ahead in order to deal that damage himself. And he's ahead right now. He's up a level on ELLEON, but I imagine that won't last too long if Mineral keeps making plays like that.
Yeah, that was ill-advised, certainly, and Mineral ends up getting punished for it. I want to make sure that we give Vision some credit when it's due, though, because I think last game was the best game we've seen from him yet, right? And some of it, I think, is him probably just kind of getting more into the groove, getting back to playing at a level similar to this. I think also he's probably just more comfortable here on the Medusa. She's not tremendously difficult to execute on, I wouldn't say. So that does bring that level down a bit more for him as well, so he can feel more comfortable. Visions is playing at a level where this team could absolutely still win and hopefully still qualify.
That's what they're hoping for, no doubt. And with the way that they played Game 2, I think that it's hard to argue anything but they still had a couple moments that were a little bit spooky.
It's true.
Game 1 was pretty handily a blowout for Trick Babushka with this exact composition, save for one fight where Hypeunit looked like they were going to get back into it. And they lose fire right after that. So I'm really looking at how well Boronic's going to do on this mid lane Persephone. Persephone's the type of goddess that you can just insta-win games for your team by playing well with her. It's also pretty easy to lose games because you aren't that impactful with her at the same time.
There's definitely some times where Persephone doesn't feel great. I think we saw a game earlier where she correctly predicted it would be the left side Phoenix they aggressed on and was set up. Uzzy's in a bit of trouble, might have to use this ultimate. He's trying to avoid having to use it. There is the ultimate from Brandon to force it out, and Uzzy, greedy with the ultimate, it ends up paying off, never has to use it.
Shout outs to Jade Emperor's crown. I mean, just gives you protection and reduces their power at the same time. That's worth a lot of effective HP in engagement just like that. And I like Brandon's idea. I mean, no way he doesn't ult if I ult, but Uzzy's been playing solo lane a long, long time. He's played against a lot of Bellona. No coincidence to me that he's ult onto the ultimate there.
And that, whatever that was that we just saw from him, right? The confidence, the whatever you want to call it, the matchup knowledge, that is in solo laners, all of them, man. The real good ones at the very least. They love to play those kind of games. They don't want to feel like anything's getting forced by the other guy. And it ends up working out there for Uzzy as Layers goes aggressive. The Scourge is here, though, to try and stop all these basic attacks from Layers. But they've got the numbers advantage now turned back towards evens thanks to the Defender of Olympus. Layers pops the Kingslayer, but it's too much damage. Brandon puts him down, and the set doesn't work this time.
Looks like Brandon's going to be out because he's got a minion wave coming to escort him out of this tier 1 tower. ELLEON's on the way, but only grabs Yuji.
Yuji should get pulled back in, uses the taunt though, so Uzzy can't set up for the follow-up, and Yuji gets a kill here too. Disaster now striking for Hypeunit as Leon gets taken up to the sky. Should be able to make it back out, but they're willing to commit here for the dive. They don't quite have the damage from ShadowChair. Now, here he comes in, a third kill. The right side collapses for Hypeunit.
That is brutal for this team. It looked like it was going to be good. We know Bellona has no ultimate. Let's rotate set over. But again, Yuji's ultimate comes up huge, forces Layers back even for just a little bit. And then Layers keeps trying to take that fight, but that Stone of Binding was massive in helping Brandon deal a lot of damage. He's got the Berserker's Shield. He was swinging on that set, and with those extra block stacks as well, it's tough to beat.
This is a good shot from Oboronic to cut off Yuzi's escape path, and we know he does not have the Defender of Olympus, so he is locked down, but they don't have enough damage. In fact, I think Oboronic used the beads on the way out of there, and now Mineral should know that he's a sitting duck, gets the ring bounce on it for all the extra damage, perfectly played, and Mineral gets another kill.
I like the decision from Oboronic. You can cancel that passive so that it doesn't consume your 25 seeds, so that you end up saving that for next time. No way Oboronic gets anything done there in that passive, but man, that's a heartbreaking sequence of events.
Yeah, it is.
If you're Hypeunit.
And now it could be further trouble as Visions might be in danger of getting soloed over and left. I don't know what happened, Aggro, but the dam has now broken, and suddenly Trick Babushka are streaming through.
Now it's only a 1,000 gold lead right now, but you want to talk about a momentum-based team, a team that likes to ride on their emotions. This is not a great sequence for a team like that. And even though the gold lead is basically nothing, that experience lead is certainly worth talking about. 3,000 is quite a bit. Layers actually has a lead in the jungle right now, which is surprising, but you know that Yuji is catching up with the trend of this game. You've got a level lead just about everywhere else. 2 levels for Mineral. Not a great start for Hypeunit.
It really has not been. And what's crazy is that it actually was a good start for them initially.
Yeah.
And then Trick Babushka came back in and kind of put that to bed with a great sequence over in the solo lane. A solo kill happening in the long lane there too, where DayToRemeber catches out Visions. I was saying that maybe this would be the better matchup for him with this Medusa, would be a bit safer. But just as you alluded to, man, that mounted archery is such a potent tool that even once you dash, he closes the gap and gets a ton of extra damage in, plus the slow. It's so hard to fight back into that, and DayToRemeber comes out on top.
And the ward coverage for Trick Babushka has been very, very solid all day today. It seems like they've got relevant information on where everybody is. Layers on this left-hand side a little bit earlier on, level 2, level 3, warded. Good use of those vision shards and making sure that they know exactly where everybody is at all times.
Oracle control for Hype Unit 2, speaking of vision, so now they'll know if any cheeky gold furies happen in the next few minutes here, but I don't know that Trick Babushka are necessarily lining up for it. I mean, there have been some good plays here from Hype Unit. I mean, I'm thinking about Oboronic dropping that ultimate. It kind of catched Uzzy when he was on the retreat path, and they came in for the setup, but Uzzy ends up making it back out of there, and Oboronic ends up dying when Mineral catches back up to him. That kind of sequence is the one that can really hurt your mental state, because it started off with a great play, I'd say, from Oboronic.
I'd agree, but he didn't have any pen at the time.
Yep.
Layers is only sitting on that Jotun's Wrath, and Yuji's a Guardian at the end of the day, so it's going to be tough. And I love this Magi's pickup from Uzzy. This was a breastplate last time he played this Athena jungle in this slot. There's a lot of very impactful CC on Hype Unit. There's not a lot of easily guaranteed CC that's going to pull this Magi's out. In fact, it's basically just ultimate from ELLEON, knock up from Uzzy, tremble from Uzzy, or a stun from Visions, or a root from Visions. That'll stop it. Boronic's ultimate, I believe, unless it hits onto you, will not proc that Magi's. If it hits onto you, it will, but that cripple is a soft CC, so it won't break that Magi's bubble. So there is some good news for Hype Unit there, but I think for the vast majority of it, this Magi's is basically just air result insurance for Uzzy. It lets him not go beads. I think it's a very smart pickup.
He's got the Blink and the Shell fully upgraded. This is a trend I know that you're a big fan of. Picking up this Shell as that second relic and upgrading it right away. Those block stack on it can be really impactful.
Huge, especially against Set. I mean, who's gonna do so much of his damage with auto attacks. If Mineral's in trouble, or if one of your carries, DayToRemeber, ShadowChair, they're getting chased down by the Set, how about giving them some damage mitigation? And then as soon as you land, giving them a Hell Shield that also gives them 2 block stacks. That is very, very difficult to chew through in the early game. Late game, it can be the difference because you just have enough damage to turn it around in the time that 2 autos would take. Right now, it's just, it buys you a lot of effective HP.
Visions has made it back to the Tier 1 tower despite Mineral's aggression, so he should be A-okay there in that spot. Another good point to think is that obviously you don't have to slow your DPS during that time, right? Like you would with Aegis. This could be trouble in the jungle. Oboronic has been caught yet again. ShadowChair is the one that catches him, and Mineral has found ELLEON now. Caught him with that Windfire Wheels and brought him right back down. It's just Merlin damage waiting for him. Not particularly bursty, but Visions has to use the Petrify. That gets answered handily. And now for the turnaround damage. He's still alive for now, but Mineral comes in to clean it up. Trick Babushka get the Gold Fury as well. And now the numbers advance. They move into the fight. Uzzy in the back line can keep it going, and suddenly Leon has to run but can't make it out. A 4-for-0 wipe for Trick Babushka.
A bloodbath, and it all starts with Oboronic. Doesn't get that ult off, doesn't get his Aegis off, had beads on cooldown, but again he cancels the passive, so he doesn't stick around. That's a moment where you would have loved to stay in your passive. You just at least get to get your ultimate off in that team fight and affect it in some way. Stop that chase from going. Maybe you just stand by Gold Fury and make sure that they can't do that at that moment, but ends up electing not to revive. Oh, an absolute bloodbath up against Hype Unit, where it's just this composition again. Hype Unit does not seem well prepared to deal with this much CC and peel. This is a team that really excels at diving the back line and letting Uzzy and Layers do the hard lifting on these team fights, and then Oboronic is able to usually take care of frontliners by himself with a little bit of help occasionally from ELLEON or Visions. With this much protection and this much CC, even though they aren't dying quickly, except in Boronic's case, they're still dying, and that's really what matters. In Trick Babushka, again, another really, really one-sided team fight with this style of comp.
And look at this build from Brandon. That's going to get real annoying, isn't it? The Toxic Blade and this Frostbound Hammer. Whoever it is that he picks in the back line, not only is barely going to be healing, but he is going to be sticking to them as well pretty effectively once they're slowed as a result of this build path. That's a ton of health as well, so it can be effective in terms of his tankiness against both the magical and physical damage too. I think I kind of like this build path.
It's going to be very difficult for Layers or for Visions to get away.
And Visions, just as you say that, cannot get away. Uzzy is the one that claims the life there. He completes the killing spree, and they give themselves yet another number advantage. Now, Brandon's in trouble over there in right. I talked about how good the build is. Maybe not when you're trying to 1v3. Eagles rally to get away. Defender of Olympus too. They're going to make sure Brandon gets out of here. Even Mineral's rotating over, and maybe they could even turn the tide as Mineral gets aggressive.
I mean, really, Trick Babushka can go wherever they want right now on the map. They've got such a big lead. When it comes to gold, yes, 6,000 might not be the biggest lead you've ever seen in 18 minutes, but
Whoa.
that is important. 11,000 experience is an insurmountable experience lead. I mean, you've got 3 levels on the ADC, 4 levels on support, 2 levels in mid, 2 levels in solo. Only Layers who's keeping pace whatsoever. And that's exactly what Babushka should do. Group up and shove, because you're not beating this.
Oboronic drops the ultimate from long range to try and delay the push. It does force out the sprint from Babushka and keeps the tier 2 tower standing for now. Babushka can regroup. Layers wants to come in, but the taunt was there waiting. Beads allows him to keep the aggression, but he has to disengage. Leon's going to go in for the no escape. That does pull in Mineral, but Mineral gets the shell. Is still standing. Leon finally brings him down, but now it's time for Brandon to come in and force Layers to disengage. The Iajutsu stun lands, and ELLEON is done. In goes Uzzy. Can't quite find the taunt thanks to a good ultimate from Visions, but they should finally be able to get the tier 2.
Uzzy's going to try and get something going. This is the best fight Hype unit can have, and I still don't love their odds in it. They're just down by that much.
And now backing up with this last charge, I have to think he regroups with his team. And at the very least, they've done their work because the tier 2 tower is still standing. Babushka very nearly got that for free. And here's another ultimate from Oboronic. It's back up. They started the fight with it, and now they want to end it. Aegis comes out from DayToRemeber, but he pops anyway. Uzzy now going to turn right back towards Brandon to try and bring this Bellona down as well. This is the best fight Hype Unit have had all map long, and they might have a chance to turn this around as Layers tries to get into range and does shut down Brandon.
Huge, huge ultimate from Oboronic both times, and that's why, hey, that's why we build CDR on Persephone, so we can do that as much as possible, because that ult is nutty. Gotta say, though, bad relic usage from DayToRemeber. He's sitting in that cage, had both relics up. At the very end, he goes, oh yeah, maybe I should have Aegis this, and then uses it at the very end, but it's far, far too late. You've got to bead as soon as that Grasp of Death lands on you, and he would have been out. And Brandon likely would have followed because he only went in to try and save Day. And all that being said, how much does that really do for Hype Unit? It gets Oboronic closer in this game because he was in a really bad spot.
It does a lot to stall.
It does a good amount to stall, but you still have a massive XP difference.
Yeah.
The good news is stalling is better against XP differences than gold differences because eventually you hit the cap on XP. You're not getting any higher than level 20. That's still not... That's not great news. You know, that's not exactly music to my ears if I'm super far behind. Don't worry. They can only get so far. It's only when they get their strongest that you don't have to worry about it anymore.
But this is, I think, Hype Unit's greatest strength, man. There are a lot of teams that when they start taking damage like this, to use like a boxing analogy, they raise their hands to guard. But when it happens to Hype Unit, they take one last swing, don't they? Like they're like, okay, well here we are. We're just gonna swing for the fences. Why guard? And it ends up working for them sometimes, and maybe they have a chance to fight back in. Babushka do find the Oni Fury as the ultimate from Oboronic is a little bit too late to get there to contest the objective. Does do some decent damage, though, on the way out to weaken Babushka. And so Uzzy wants to go in, so does ELLEON. Here's that swing I was just mentioning. Good CC movie, though, so no one gets pulled by the no escape, and Babushka have stalled all that aggression.
And you get Mineral's ult, as well as Brandon and Yuji's. Trade 2 ults for 3, but it costs ELLEON's blink. And you're not winning games trading 2 ults for 3 when you're down by this much. You have to hope that it goes a little bit better than that.
For Uzzy, the taunt catches him while he's underneath the ground, and Uzzy doesn't have the ultimate, so DayToRemeber gobbles it up. Layers tries to get to the back line, but he is immediately stifled. He gets stunned as well. Beads and Aegis allow him to reposition, but the damage still coming. DayToRemeber gets himself a double kill. Another Grasp of Death from Oboronic, but the rest of Babushka just keep moving right on through it. A 2 for 0, and they're going to head back to FG.
Visions is getting some much-needed golden experience on the left-hand side, but that means that this is an easy FG for Babushka. They know it's only 2 members, and they've got eyes on both of them. Yuji's able to zone them out effectively alongside Brandon. This will be a fire giant for Babushka.
And well earned for Babushka. Hype Unit really did not have much of an answer. They've lost Uzzy and Layers. Visions going to do what he can to get this tier 2 tower. I think this is the right call considering the decision tree he's already on at this point. So you absolutely got to just go ahead and take that tier 2 and get back out of there. But definitely, that's a great sequence for Babushka.
Then now that, as if the game wasn't already in their hand enough, this is where you end the fight, to continue your boxing analogy. You've got Hype Unit on the ropes, and it's time to end it now. I mean, you don't really want to wait around for this Fury in 3 minutes. You get all 3 tier 2s, and then you try your hand at a Phoenix push, because as you highlighted, there's a decent chance Hype Unit is just going to try and defend one of these tier 2s, and counterpunch you when you aren't expecting it.
Yeah.
Trick Babushka should be welcoming any fight that they can get.
And remember, this is where we saw Hype Unit stumble just for a bit. They still end up winning game 2, but it was this exact moment. They got the Fire Giant, there's a bunch of towers up, and Uzzy teleports over to defend a weird push from Trick Babushka, and they don't get as much as they can. I don't see that same stumble happening for Trick Babushka. They are stepping in now to try and keep this momentum going, adding this extra gold to go along with the significant experience lead and pushing this game out of reach for Hype Unit.
This should be a much tighter siege. It looks like they're not going to push up that right-hand side and mess with that tier 2. So they're going to try and get this left side Phoenix, the most valuable Phoenix, since it's the furthest from the Fire Giant, as early as they can. I don't blame them. They got an awful lot of level 20s. Only a couple on the other side for Hype Unit.
Persephone does feel pretty good in the defense, though. How do you like Hype Unit's defense?
Persephone's phenomenal at it. Yorm can be annoying, as I highlighted, but the rest of it is not great. Medusa's okay, but not phenomenal.
Trick Babushka want to move in before this defense actually gets set. Leon has multiple with the chain, but it really only ends up pulling Mineral. Trick Babushka still very healthy at the front of this left side Phoenix. They'll heal up a little bit with this Fire Giant buff and try again.
And Boronic's already used the ultimate, the most important button on the field right now, so you got to like your odds at Trick Babushka. You got nothing to fear now.
And that ult a short cooldown with all that CDR, but it ain't this short, so he won't have another one. Aggressing onto Leon on the right-hand side. He's starting to burn down to half HP already, but no damage to the actual mid-Phoenix. Trick Babushka have been mostly looking for the fight. Now they turn their attention to the structure, but Hype Unit have stalled them enough here for now. Trick Babushka don't actually find a whole lot.
This is the right idea. Back it up. You tried it. Clearly their defense is good enough. Both teams lacking ultimates, but you know that Oboronic has a ton of CDR, so that's going to be coming up sooner rather than later.
Wow, it's back.
Try and get that tier 2 on the right if you can, but because no one pushed up that wave, it's going to be pretty difficult to do so. So we'll just back it up and spend some gold.
It's 90 at base, but Boronic's at the 40% cap now, right? Even more with Chronos Pendant, 20% from that, 10 from the boots, and 10 from Spirit Desolation. So he's certainly going to have that ultimate up all the time, and he has used it well throughout this game. Hype Unit are down 8,000 gold, a ton of experience, but the experience starting to mean less. Those level 20s you mentioned earlier are coming in. Hype Unit are definitely still in this one, even though I do think it is going to be a bit of a long shot.
We have to defend like that 4 more times?
Yeah.
5 more times? Probably where we're looking. I mean, maybe it's 4 because you are level 20 for a lot of your characters. You just got to get to full build. You've got to... They've gotten a lot of towers down on Trick Babushka's side of the map, which is important. It gives you a win condition.
Yeah. That
you could just march it down left and try and end through that Phoenix that's exposed. But this is... to say it's an uphill battle is kind of you, for sure.
They mentioned on the desk Bellona and what her impact would be here in this match, leading the player damage charge 1-1 and 8 for Brandon 2. He's also done, I would argue, a great job baiting this game, using his ultimates well to avoid Leon's no escape ultimate and getting back out too. I think it's been a great game down the line for Trick Babushka. And I'm a bit surprised. I know they have some great names on here. It's been a long journey for these guys to make it to this point, but if they end up being one of the teams that make it back out, I'd consider it maybe like a slight or mild upset. I don't know that I would have picked them, but they definitely have the talent.
I agree. I mean, Mineral was in the SPL last year.
That's true.
I definitely think he's their headliner. He's definitely the player to watch for this squad. ShadowChair has been around the Smite Minor League level or just below it for a long time. DayToRemeber, basically the exact same thing. Uzzy is a player that has a lot of potential. It's nearly in the SPL.
Yeah, I heard some rumors he's about to get picked up, I think, at the start of Season 5, I want to say.
That's right. Nearly. He was on the initial Splice roster that was announced and then just didn't end up making it into the beginning of the season. But you know that these are guys that are talented for sure.
And we talk a lot about how hungry this Hype Unit team is, but Trick Babushka has a lot of that too. Like you said, they've been at this level for a long time, so the victory would mean a lot as Uzzy can't make it up in time. ShadowChair gets the kill. That could potentially be huge here for Trick Babushka. Mineral gets stuck the second that he dashes in thanks to the Grasp of Death, but Leon pulls 2 back into the tier 2 tower, but where's the follow-up? His visions get shredded. ShadowChair finds a double as Oboronic falls as well. Leon left on an island, and he's fallen too. It's just Layers, the leader here for Hype Unit. That's in trouble now as Trick Babushka want to qualify out of groups.
Listen, man, I know Set's pretty good in 1v5ing, but I don't know if he's going to be this good. This is power pot territory for Layers, and hope that you can stay alive to make it to the Challenger.
Layerssss is certainly good, and he can make the big-time plays. Tries to get to ShadowChair in the back inside the Kingslayer ultimate. Gets the one shut down, but it's just too much to ask. It's a D aside. It's Trick Babushka over Hype Unit, claiming it in game number 3 and punching their way through to the SCC.
What a set from them. What a day for Trick Babushka.
What a day, right?
They have a great day, end up making it the final set of the day. Like you said, a lot of name power here, but not necessarily the team that you would expect to be one of the ones coming out of a very competitive Group B. But congratulations to them. We'll be seeing them in the Smite Challenger circuit.
You're absolutely right, man, and well-deserved. These are 5 guys who we know have been grinding. We've gotten to see it firsthand for a long time here now, and even up against a really tough Hype Unit squad that fought hard despite everything against them, they absolutely earned it here with this win.
Absolutely. Hype Unit, really tough situation for them. You got to feel for these guys. You know how much they wanted it, but they just weren't the better team today.
They weren't able to get it done here. Congratulations again to Trick Babushka for their win. Don't worry, though. We're going to break down those games and what happened, everyone that qualified, right here at the Consortium of Knowledge.
I appreciate it, Finch, and well done closing out the day. This was a long, long day, about 8 hours of broadcast. Finch and Aggro wrap things up with a nice bow for us, and Trick Babushka make their way, and Gormizer with me to continue and to finally wrap things up here for us.
Yeah, and I mean, Trick Babushka do the thing that they needed to do. I mean, it comes down to it, and it wasn't as clean as Hype Unit's game 2,
right?
But it was a clean game for them. ShadowChair's only death was at the very end there, where Layerssss kind of full commits onto him. DayToRemeber as well, both of them 6-1. ShadowChair was 6-1 and 8. DayToRemeber 6-1 and 6. They play it really well. The damage numbers are there for them. The objective control was there for them. Again, it was just clean game of Smite with a lot of control, once again, coming from this Athena jungle.
In some games today where we've seen Hunters kind of disappear on the damage charts, wouldn't be surprised throughout a few of these sets where they're at the bottom 2.
Yeah.
I think DayToRemeber has stamped his name in a lot of these sets. Wasn't top damage on his team or in the game, but definitely very high up there in the conversation. I loved what I saw out of ShadowChair. You just briefly brought him up. This Merlin looked good good for him rather, throughout this set. And Merlin in general, I think, looked good throughout the day today. Wonder if maybe some adaptations in pick bans there for them. But Trick Babushka, you drop a set early on to be able to fight back against Hype Unit, and especially after losing game 2, you have to give him props.
And honestly, with the way things were played, it wasn't much that Hype Unit did wrong as much as it is that Trick Babushka played things correctly in a lot of these matches. Specifically, like, I mean, look at ShadowChair. The fact that he's playing that aggressive, there's not much you can do against him, especially at that stage of the game. He was so far ahead. But I think it felt like a return to form for DayToRemeber. I think going back to the Athena jungle, which they had run in the first game, was clean for Uzzy. And it's, again, moments like that. Having that pick in your pocket is really solid for any team, let alone here in the Challenger circuit. So it's caused a lot of, it's a big stir for this set that I think will cause a big splash as things go forward.
We saw a lot of different metas starting to form in that one. Didn't get to see the games today, but let's take a look at what happened in Group A. Lots of 2-0s on that one, as we sort of explained at the top of the day. Unsurprisingly, Gore, lots of wins for Locked and Goated, lots of wins there for Baskin and the boys.
Yeah, and honestly, very clean for them. Not so clean in Group B. Still the minimum number of games needed to get to the end route, but a lot of 2-1s, a couple that we saw, you know, Houdini's and Bloogie and the Woogies, the Hype Unit Houdini set as well, and Houdini's kind of knocking me out with the way they played. I mean, I did not expect them to be in the top 3, let alone the top.
Yeah, it was very clean over in Group A. Those top 3 teams, anyone who has an asterisk is fully qualified in to the SCC for split number 1. Locked and Goated, Baskin and the boys, and Mexiety on set, clean 3-0s for them. They move themselves on. A little bit messier, as you point out, but Houdini's, Bloogie, and the Woogies, and Trick Babushka able to move their way through. I guess the surprise has to be that Hype Unit didn't make it in.
Yeah, I mean, everyone expected them to, and again, that shows why these games are so important, and honestly, why consistency is key. Houdini's played really well on the day. Trick Babushka played really well on the day. Hype Unit were just a little too polarized. They had a really good high end, but a really low end, so it wasn't enough to claw their way in, but honestly, I'm looking at the other teams. I think they're going to put up some really good fights over the next couple of months.
Yeah, and you thought today was a great day of Smite. Yeah. We have the EU qualifiers tomorrow, same time, 11 a.m. Eastern time on mixer.com/SmiteGame, twitch.tv/SmiteGame. And stick around after that broadcast if you want to take a look at some of the Group A NA games. you can tune in after our EU broadcast tomorrow and see all of those games broadcasted in their entirety. On behalf of myself, Kukulkan on the side of my face, Anna, appreciate you for that one.
Give us a nice little peek on the other side.
Yeah, right, just in case. Oh, right, Finch.
We haven't gotten to see the Finch rules in a little while.
Yeah, right,
I wanted
which is
to make
a good
sure
thing.
everyone
It's a good thing
remembered
it's
it.
on that side of my face. On behalf of myself, Gormizer, everyone back in production. I don't see Agua around, so I'll steal his thing. You can peach it. Wait, these are...